And start recording. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the podcast.
We're going to give it a minute, make sure everybody gets in, and then we'll get rolling here in a second. And today we're going to talk about when you're traveling, how to have a good experience when you're at different gyms. I'm going to move this around just a smidgen. You guys can see this. Here we go. We'll just move this over here. Oh! Party foul.
First party foul for Eugene.
Way to go, Eugene. You ruined the table.
Yeah, well, I got coffee. I always spill stuff. I have a habit of doing that. Let's see if you guys are on here. I think you are.
I'm going to get everything going. And
Yep.
as you guys jump in, just let us know where you're coming from. I always like to see where the different people are from. Just because I know we have a big audience from all over the place. Got an international audience. And like I said, in just a second here, we'll jump into some tips on just how to have a good experience. And this came about just because I just recently got back from Montana and was training out there. I was out there for a guy named Andy Stump. He runs a podcast called Cleared Hot, and he invited me out there. We did the podcast, trained a bit, and it actually kind of came up out there. We were talking about training with people, and one of the black belts out there, Chris, we were kind of talking about how, you know, sometimes you can roll with someone and it's like the best experience. Like when we were rolling out there, he told me, he said, man, he goes, it was like rolling with one of the people here. It was a good vibe. And even though we're training hard, but there are situations sometimes where you roll with someone that's not from your gym where you can just instantly tell where it's not going to be a fun roll, it's not going to be enjoyable, and it's a different situation. So for some of you guys that if you do travel, you may not be traveling in the near future, but you might be traveling at some point. I'll give you some tips on how to sort of get the best experience, because one of those things is that when you travel, you definitely want to get invited back. You don't want to go to one of those places where, you know, they're like, we don't want this person back. They're not going to invite you back, whatever. You want to have a good experience with it, with the people, and you can make some good friends that way as well. So let's see here. We got Scott from Lancashire, UK. We got Athens, Georgia, meme surprise. Seattle, Washington, New York, Moscow, Dan Mesh. He's Russian. And then we got Alberta, Canada. From Ohana Jiu-Jitsu in Georgia. Got another Moscow. You guys, we got the Russian audience here supporting Eugene.
Sweet, thank you guys.
I
wonder what time it is out there.
I don't know. It's probably it's probably like a day ahead, isn't it? Or well, no, it's not that far. It's not that far across. It's not like Singapore or something like that. Sure. I used to play online games with some guys from Singapore, and they're exactly like 12. They're exactly, I think it's either 12 or 24 hours like difference.
Oh, really?
Because it would be like, you know, it would be nighttime for me and it'd be morning for them.
What's Australia was like literally
they're a day ahead of us.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so they're ahead of, because the rising's on the east and it goes from east to west.
Minus daylight savings.
Yeah, right. You got Adam Gomez, a buddy of mine from Georgetown.
What's up, brother?
His dudes looked tough yesterday. And then got Trey Scholl, who had his first competition yesterday, did pretty well.
Congrats, Trey.
Yeah. Let's see here. We got Austin just got promoted to blue belt. Congratulations, Austin. It's awesome, brother. And then Middle Tennessee. We got a big group here. Cool. So Dan says it's in Russia. It's 8 p.m. for where he's
8 p.m.
at. Yeah, but I guess Russia's kind of a big place. So I guess if it's in Moscow, it's 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Because like Russia, it's a huge landmass. And then Michael Spoto says, "Hey, Chew, I used your baseball bat choke yesterday. Fantastic. That's the best." Then we got Matt at Epic Roll here. He's got a special going on. We'll tell you more about it later on, but just in case you're curious, Matt at Epic Roll, if you guys want to, he has a special sort of a limited time holiday discount where if you go to epicrollbjj.com, you can save 30% off with Jiu-Jitsu 30. Can we get a napkin?
Nah, it's fine.
All right. Can I have a nice coffee stain there?
It's okay.
All right. So, guys, let's go ahead and jump into it then, and we'll, as everybody comes in, we'll talk more about it. But something that's, I think, kind of important, because, you know, for me, I was actually talking about this when in my email that I sent out last Friday, or Thursday, when I travel, there's a few things I always look up. I always look up, one, where I'm going to eat. If there's a local coffee shop, I always look that up because I always like to see what the local coffee's like.
Yeah.
But then otherwise, it's where am I going to lift weights and where am I going to do jiu-jitsu at? And if the trip lasts more than like, if it's more than a 24-hour trip, I have to look those things up.
Yeah.
I've always done that. I've always traveled and trained, and it's been really cool because there have been some situations where it's really helped me out, like where having a good experience and being able to promote a good vibe at a gym like came in handy big time.
Right.
Like I remember when I was in Spain back in 2012, going into 2013, I remember my girlfriend at the time, we were trying to get a rental car there, and they for whatever reason would not let us rent a car. I don't know why. I wasn't young. I was like 27 at the time, so I wasn't young, and I was like, I don't know why they wouldn't let us rent it, but they had some reasoning as to why we couldn't rent a car there. And she had been living there, so I was like, why can't she? She was like living in that area, was teaching in Spain at the time. I was like, well, why can't she rent one? But they wouldn't let us rent one. So I remember we were kind of bummed about it because we had paid for this this canyoning trip with these guides where they took us in this place called I think it was Mortiche in Mallorca, where you do all this canyoning, and we already paid for the whole trip, to do this, with these guides. And then we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we get across this little island from Mallorca to, I forgot the island or the city that it was on the island, and we had to we're trying to figure out all the busing and everything else.
Yeah.
Well, I'd been training at this gym there because I was there for about 2.5 weeks in there, and so I was training like almost every morning with these guys in Mallorca there in Palma, and we were training every single day, and super nice guys. And one of the guys' name was Rafał. I don't know, can't remember how to say it exactly, but he was Polish, and he worked at. So it's a big vacation spot there, right?
Okay.
Because basically, like all the Germans and the Polish people and the English people and everybody comes down to these islands to party and have fun and everything else, and to vacation. And so his boss had a rental place. So you rent stuff and everything else. And so he heard me talking about it, and he said, "Oh man," he goes, "we got rental cars." He's like, "I got you," And so so they had this rental car place there, and so he hooked us up. He gave us like a rental car for we paid like 30 euros for the whole weekend. It was like nothing, right? So it's like, it's nothing. It was like, we were going to pay much more at the other place. They wouldn't even let us, and so we got a great deal. And part of it was, I remember rolling with this guy and, just having a good experience with him. I wasn't going in there trying to rip his face off or anything else. Like, it doesn't mean I didn't go hard or anything like that, but, we're having a good exchange and fun. Yeah. And again, it was like one of those things where, he was like, "Oh, cool." Like you get a good vibe from someone and you want to take care of him as well. And this weekend when I was training in Montana, or this week rather, in Montana, there was a black belt there who, his name's Chris, and he's a smaller guy, about 100. I don't know how much he weighs, but I think about 150s, probably somewhere in there. Super, quick and technical. But again, I outweigh him by 55, 60 pounds, and so that's a big deal when you're talking about black belt weight, right? It's not like like 50 pounds. If the guy doesn't know anything, can be dangerous, but you can control him. 50 pounds from a guy who trains and know what the hell he's doing, that's a different beast, and you got to be careful with it. And so whenever I go against guys that are smaller than me, I just kind of. I still go, we were going. We were moving, and I'm trying to press the pace and everything else, but I'm not just I'm not putting that same sort of collapsing pressure on them. Like when I go in for like a double underpass, I'm not going to fold them up like I would with someone my own weight, because you just know the body, it's just going to be a little different, and especially in the training environment, I don't want to hurt them or anything like this. And so we were going. And, I still was trying to take the back and do all my normal stuff, but I was trying to do it just being mindful of his weight and where he's at. Right.
Yeah.
And so I remember afterwards we trained a couple times over the week, because we had 2 sessions there, and fun training sessions, good workouts and everything else. And I remember afterwards he was saying something. He was like, "You're a cool dude." And it's cool because when you came in and trained, it almost was like we had trained before. Like it was a good vibe. Where sometimes you get people, and he was, he talked about having some situations where he'd roll with other black belts where they would just go crazy hard and fold him in half and bust up his back and stuff. And it's one of those things where as soon as you lock up with someone and you feel that rigidity in their body, and you're like, "Oh man, this isn't going to be a fun roll.
Right.
This is going to be a fight to the death, whatever roll." And you just met this person, and so again, those people were cool with me being there. And I'm going to go back, and I'm going to try to go back in the summertime because I want to go back to that area because it was very beautiful. Mm-hmm. The scenery there is great, and so we're going to go back and train. And they're very invited. "Yeah, we can't wait to have you back."
Yeah,
so that's the experience you want to have. Mm-hmm. And so I figured we would just kind of talk about that idea and how to basically create a good experience when you go to gyms. So this way, people want to have you back, right? Rather than you go in and they do everything that they can to make sure you don't come back, or just simply don't want you there, or you could even use some of these ideas if you're in the gym where, you know, if you're a bigger, stronger person or whatever, if you find that people don't want to roll with you, sometimes it can be, you know, there's some things that you can do to try to adjust that.
Yeah. Do you think it's when people are that rigid, like they feel like they have to defend something, or like I've got to show that my gym's legit kind of thing? We don't want this outsider coming in and then, you know, roughing us up and then like going back and saying, oh, their gym's, you know, not tough or whatever.
I think it's both ways, right? Because sometimes like you go to some gyms where like, you've had this experience before where you go to a gym and it's like every match is like you're getting gunned for. Oh, yeah. You know, I've had this experience where like literally walk into a room, and this is back before people knew me on YouTube, you know, so people don't really know who I was, but they were looking at me, and I would walk in and I knew instantly from the way that I was looking, getting looks, and the first roll that I had and the way that the black belt was observing, I knew from the get-go it was going to be all right. Like I'm in for a fight every single round, and they're going to try to take my head off, whatever, you know, and it's just the way it's going to be. But then there's the other situation too, where people go to gyms and it's the exact same thing where they feel like they have something to prove at this gym. You know, I got to represent my gym at this gym. And I think which is a terrible idea. I'm not saying you can't represent, and I'm not saying you can't go hard either. I think it's just, I think of rolling, and this is true for pretty much any time. You know, this is not true just when you're visiting. I think of rolling almost like dancing. Right. So if I go up to a woman and ask her to dance, like I'm not going to start like, I mean, I guess maybe some people might. I wouldn't. I'll just say it that way. I'm not going to start filling this girl up while we're dancing. Right. Like now later on, if we've been dating for a little bit, or, you know, if I can feel that the energy is going, maybe we do. Right. Yeah. Same thing with a rolling partner. I try to sort of feel the roll out, and we kind of pick a pace and we go. Right. Because especially if it's the first time I've ever rolled with this person, I'm not trying to kill them. That's just me. It might be different for everybody else. My goal is not to like roll with someone and to stand up over top of people and like flex on them, right? Because again, there's a time where during competition training, that's where I'm sharpening my stuff up. Or if I've got a really good training partner, we go, or competition, you know, there's times to go really, really hard. But there's also times where it's like, I'm just going to try to like get a good roll in, and I'm not going to try to go 100%. Now, I know some people don't have the skill level that I do, where you can't necessarily have those gears, but it's something you should aspire to. Right. You should aspire to have that, where you can turn it up and you can turn it down, because there's value in all those different levels of rolling, everything from your own technical development into your own ability to be assertive with your game. There's a value in all of it. But a lot of times when I go to gyms, I'll lock up with someone and I'll kind of fill them out, and I'll just say, all right, let's see where we go. You know, and a lot of times if you do that, you'll start to notice that you start turning it up a little bit over time, where it's like you kind of warm up with each other, and then boom, 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 boom. And then before you know it, you're going really hard. You know, like when we had several months ago, we had a new black belt come to our gym, Mark, who came from one of John Salter's gyms. So one of our affiliates in the Sean Hammond's team, one of his gyms. And Mark's a tough dude. He comes from John Salter's gym, so you know he's going to be a gritty dude. I mean, John's tough as nails, and everybody else in there is. And so when Mark and I started rolling, like it was this very like kind of flowy at first. And then we kept going. And then before you know it, then we're going after each other. Yeah. You know, and I think that that's a good thing to kind of deal with as well, is like to kind of warm up with people and kind of start off just like you would with a dance. Warm up with people. You know, think of it as a conversation. You're exchanging, you know, maybe a conversation would be a good way. You know, when you're starting to talk with someone, you're kind of warming up with them, getting to know them. Yeah. You know, if we meet someone for the first time, I'm not going to tell you my life story. Right? You'd be like, whoa. I've had people, have you ever had someone do that? Yeah. Like where they all of a sudden start divulging these details that you're like, I don't know you, and you're telling me about this really like TMI, right? Now, if it's a good friend, you're really concerned. What's going on, man? What, you know, that kind of thing. And so maybe it's the same way, you know, because jiu-jitsu is kind of a universal language, right? I mean, you can speak two different verbal languages, but you can roll, you can train, you can show techniques, and you know exactly what you're doing. Yeah. You know, like when I was in Spain, I was teaching, and a lot of times, not all the guys spoke English, but they all knew the move, right? So you're exchanging this communication through these body movements. So, you know, maybe with the communication, you sort of open up slowly a little bit, you know, and then you kind of get going. Now, again, if you're a white belt or a blue belt and you're going up against like a purple belt at some other gym or a brown belt at some other gym, you may just get your butt kicked, and that's just the way it's going to be. But especially as you work up, you know, you just want to make sure it's an intention thing. You're not going in there to like, I'm going in here to stomp your gym out, or if someone comes into your gym, you know, you can go hard and you can represent your gym very well, but you can also be welcoming to people. You know, I mean, people come to our gym all the time, and you know, they'll always say that, man, your guys are super tough and they're very welcoming. The two don't have to be separate. They can go together just fine with one another. Yeah. I mean, I think some of that is obviously comes from the top down.
you know, like, because that's the way you kind of represent when we're always welcoming to everyone in the gym. But yeah, you kind of feel each other out. It's a feeling out process. I mean, it's really all it is. Like, you give me a little bit, all right, I'm gonna give you a little back. You give me a little more, I'll give you a little more, and we just kind of go back and forth until we get. You're right. It's like that dance.
It's a dance.
It's a dance.
It's an exchange.
And you don't have to. I don't think you have to like completely crush someone to show that you're good or to show that you have skill. You know, you can definitely use technique and get positions without having to, you know, really like flatten someone and like use a heavy, like you didn't. I think part of the reason you don't have to use that type of pressure against someone smaller, because your skill level is where it needs to be, to where you can, you know, get your techniques to work without using extra pressure or those type of things.
No, I mean, you can, and again, you can use pressure. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, when I was rolling with Chris, I was still putting pressure on him.
Sure, yeah.
I'm just being mindful of him, right? Because again, for me, it's like, I don't want to. Accidents happen sometimes, and there's no way to avoid it. But I want to try to mitigate any risk that I present to anyone that's a good deal smaller than me. You know, because again, it's one of those things. That doesn't mean I don't squeeze him, because I squeeze it because he was slippery. Yeah. Squeeze him, get a hold of him, right? Nothing. I still do that stuff. I'm just not going to slam myself down into him and everything else, and drop my weight in a way that I would with a person that was a bit meatier. You know, just again, just something being mindful of. And I wouldn't do that in the gym anyway. You know, this is why like I can roll. And here's the thing too. By the way, I want to say thanks to Jay Turovsky for the super chat donation, brother. Appreciate you for the blessing. I'll go through your question here in just a little bit when we get to the Q&A. Your question will go first. And if anybody wants to sort of get their question expedited, you can do the same. If not, we'll get to the Q&A in just a little bit. But where was I going? I was talking about
just pressure, not
pressure. I had a good point to make too, and I got sidetracked.
Yeah. Just not one that. I mean, we're talking about not folding, not wanting to fold people up, not use super heavy pressure.
So here's the thing. So a lot of people sometimes will like thank me, like at the gym and stuff. Even at the gym, they'll say, "Oh man, thanks for not going too hard or whatever." The thing about it is that like you can get a lot of value from not necessarily going 100%.
Right.
I do this all the time, and people think that I'm doing it because I'm trying to be nice. It's like, it's not because I'm being nice. I'm working on something. Like, I'm working on something. Like, I get very little value from just squeezing you as hard as possible for 5 minutes and not moving. Like, I'm trying to work on my technique. I'm trying to work on something. I'm trying to develop a weapon, right? So, like, even when I was out there, so you've rolled me. What have I been working on recently?
Taking the back.
Taking the back. Do you know what I was doing in Montana?
Probably taking the back.
I was doing all my little back takes because I've been using them on different people and different styles. I want to say, let me see how they work on these guys. You know, same stuff. Like, I'm working on techniques. I'm working on something. There's a time that your game, if your game has, this is something I learned very early on. If your game has one speed and like you can only use one set of techniques, this is okay in the beginning as a white belt. You just do what you got to do. But if you're not actively, especially when you get to like blue belt level where you got a little bit of a base under you, and even like later white belt, if you're not actively working on something and you've got like one speed where it's like I've got to kill or be killed kind of thing, your game is going to run into a brick wall so quick. Because this is what happened to me. I was a purple belt, and I had gotten my game locked into this very narrow scope.
Yeah.
Right. And it was because I was always trying to win. that was it. Kill or be killed, and that was it. And I didn't expand my game very much. And I had to do this thing where I almost had to. Essentially, I had to relay the foundation of my game as a purple and brown belt because I missed so much experimentation as a blue belt because I was like, I'm just using what I'm best at. Yeah. Instead of like, let me try something else. Let me work on some new stuff. You know, because if I was where I was at the time, if I was training with like if I was a blue belt training with a white belt, if the white belt got something on me, then I would suck, right? And so I never was able to take those risks. And so you have to be able to do that. And so again, when you're training with people, especially when you're out at other gyms, you definitely don't want to go. I mean, at least I don't, and I would advise most people not to. You don't want to go in with the mindset of I'm going to someone else's gym. I'm taking heads off, right? I think it's a bad mentality to have. You can go in there and train hard and stuff like that, and again, just match the training that's going on. But you don't want to go in there with that mindset of I'm here to crush people and represent, right?
Right, for sure.
I mean, if you want to represent and you're good, it's fine. Do whatever you got to do. But I'm just saying, you want to do the intention really does matter because you can feel the intention of a role without having to like in the the outcome doesn't matter. So for instance, I can feel someone's intention when they're rolling with me, if they're trying to like rip my face off, or if they're trying to just get some good training in.
Yeah.
The person that's trying to rip my face off, I could smash them, obliterate them, but I can feel that intention. Whereas I could get crushed by the dude who is just getting a good roll in, but I can feel their intention. You know what I mean? There's a different, you just get the feeling. And so again, you want to be mindful of what your intention is that you're training. And then likewise, when you have people come into your gym, you know, I don't know about most people. I like having visitors. I like having people stop by. And, you know, there's a lot of cool relationships that have been developed in our gym from visitors. You know, I have a buddy of mine, a black belt, Bill, who used to come in, and he's been coming to our gym since he was a purple belt. And just whenever he's in town, he just travels, you know. We get a lot of military people that pass through, and they stop by the gym. And now because of the YouTube channel, I mean, we get a lot more visitors. But we've always been this way where we train hard, but we're trying to be welcoming to the people. You know, like, I mean, like you might come in and get smashed, but no one's going to make you feel bad about it or try to hurt you or anything. You're just going to get smashed like because the guys are good. It just happens sometimes, you know? And so, yeah, so I think it's important to kind of have a good mindset when you go into the gym. Another thing that would be important for most people, if you're newer to jiu-jitsu especially, and if you don't have a connection at that gym, see, for a lot of times I have people that like invite me to their gyms now or whatever, but a lot of times what would be a good idea is to call up ahead, email them, whatever you got to do, contact those gyms first to figure out what their rules are. Because sometimes, like some gyms, they don't allow visitors, right? And especially right now, a lot of gyms don't allow visitors, but some gyms, like even during normal conditions, don't allow visitors. Some gyms have very strict rules on gi colors, patches, all this stuff. And so you want to make sure you call them ahead just to sort of see like, how do you guys do things? And just make sure, you know, this way when you're traveling and whatever, you make sure you don't stop into a gym and then they're like, no, you can't train here. Because I've had friends that had that, or I've had friends where they traveled and because they had like a gi with a patch on, they had to like rent or buy a gi for that because they didn't allow them to have patches on their gis. You know, from the other teams, that kind of stuff, or because their gi was a certain color, they couldn't do it, and so they had to you know, rent or buy a white or plain colored gi. And so just some things I would always call ahead just to be sure on how they do things and everything else, just to be sure. And even with the way that they roll, like if you have a question, like for instance, if you're someone that uses a lot of leg locks. I know one of my students, Carlos, he went to a gym before and like, you know, we use leg locks in our gym, and you know, he was training at our gym. He knew no difference. So he went for a leg lock and they were like, whoa. They freaked out a little bit. And so sorry, didn't mean to, you know? So if you play a lot of leg locks or anything like that, you may sort of clear that with them first. Hey, what's your stance on leg locks? Because not every gym is very friendly to them. You know, so you kind of want to know the lay of the land when you go to that gym, just so you can kind of fall in line with their culture and their style. Like even me, I have my own unique way of doing things in my gym. When I go to someone else's gym, I fall in line. You know, I don't go, well, I don't do it this way. I just go along with whatever they're doing. You know, if they bow a certain way on the mat, I do that. If they line up a certain way, I do that. I just do whatever they're doing. Because again, when you're in someone else's house, it does not matter what you do, how you do things. You're in their home, right? Like if I remember when I was younger, my buddy, his family's Asian. I've since adopted this policy, but they're you know, the first time I was exposed to it, like you walk into an Asian home, you take your damn shoes off. Right. Like you take shoes off as soon as you get in the door. It's a smart thing
Russian
to do.
home as well.
Right. It makes so much sense, right? Because it's like you don't track the dirt anywhere. So like I said, I've adopted that policy. But first time I come in, they're taking their shoes off. Oh, we're taking our shoes off. Take my shoes off. It's the same thing. You know, you want to adopt the policies of the house that you're in, you know, because that you're in their home.
Is there, do you think there's specific questions you should ask? Obviously the gi question, you know, like, or if there's any specific rules on uniforms, but like one question that I think sometimes can come up is like, if you're a lower belt asking an upper belt to roll.
Sure.
Do you like say, hey, do you ask that ahead of time, or maybe you don't get a chance to, you just kind of sit and wait to be asked? To
I would observe. Like, so like, you know, I've done this even when I was like a blue belt and purple belt traveling. I would always go into a gym. I would get there early. And I would kind of watch. And I still do this to the day, because I actually, like sometimes when I'm traveling, I'll go to the gym early so that I can see if they have a class going on before the class I do, I'll watch them. Just watch how they teach class. I like watching other people do the craft. You know, how do they do things? You know, sometimes I pick up some cool tricks, or sometimes I sort of like pat myself on the back and say, I feel like I do this better. But sometimes there's some really neat things that other people do. I'm like, I like that. I'm gonna take that.
Yeah, adopt it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm like, I'm gonna steal that one. Right. That's a good one. When I go to gyms, I just kind of sit back and observe. You know, be the watcher for a little bit. How do they do things here? You know, like watching, like, you know, how when they get off the mat, are they bowing? Do they put their shoes on when they go to the bathrooms? You know, all these different things. You know, just little things. And just watch the whole darn thing happen, and you'll get a quick idea as to how the culture is. You know, and sometimes, like, it's different, like you said, because I've been to gyms before. I remember one gym where I was at this gym. And I just got done. There was a big open mat. Training was going great. Everybody's hanging out, whatever. And I remember this young guy. He's kind of giving me that side eye. Like, if you've ever been in a situation where someone notices you and, like, they kind of want to say something to you, but they're like maybe not. You know, it's almost like you know, just any situation where, you know, you're trying to, like, talk to someone, but you're like, you're not, maybe I'm not allowed to. I don't know. But he kept looking at me and just give me the side eye. And eventually I said, "What's up, man?" And I kind of like gave him this nod. He turns and comes up to me, and very excited. He's like, "What's up, man? I mean, I love your videos, whatever. Hey, I wanted to see if maybe," and he was going around about way if I would roll with him. I was like, "Yeah, let's roll." I was like, "Why didn't you just say something?" He's like, "Well, we're not allowed to ask higher belts to roll." I was like, "Oh, well, if you ever meet me," I was like, "we can roll. I don't care." You know, and I was even talking to one of my white belts the other day where at the gym, he was in the gym and he's kind of sitting there, like, looking around, and he was like kind of the bottom person on the totem pole. And I was like, "Bro," I was like, "you don't have to ask to roll. Just say, 'Hey, you want to go?' Because that's the way we do things." It's like, we're all in here together. I was like, the higher belts are going to go with you, and you're gonna get your butt kicked a little bit, and it'll be good for you. But it's good. Just ask people. You don't have to be shy about it. While we're on, like, we do have rankings. And if the higher belt maybe is like, sometimes when I'm getting ready for competitions, I won't roll with some of the people because I'm like, I need a push right now. So I'm going to go roll these higher belts. But during normal circumstances, you know, again, I'll roll with you. But again, they can always decline if they need to. But otherwise, like, we're all in here together. We're on the mats together. There is a structure of rank and everything else. But when we're training, I mean, those belts don't matter. The only thing that matters is rolling.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so but going back to it, like, you might want to just take a look back and see, how does it all go? Because some gyms are like it. Some gyms you can't, if you're a lower belt, you can't ask the higher belt, you know?
Right.
I think it's a little odd, but, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Do you think there's any advantage, and I don't see many, but do you think there's any advantage in not allowing visitors? Like, during normal circumstances, normal pandemic, nothing. Is there any advantage? And I mean,
well, it depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to maybe keep your students isolated, there could be an advantage there. Because, like, let's say, for instance,
what's the point? What's the point of isolating them?
Well, let's say, for instance, so, like, one of the things that, say, like, some of these, like turd ball, like, martial artists do, like the ones that, like, do the fake BS stuff, right? Is they create, well, I mean, whatever, we can call it whatever you want to. I mean, just, to me, they're a bunch of turds, like, you know, because I don't like when people are misrepresentative or when they're faking people. It's like, it bothers me, because it's bothered when you mislead people, right? It's okay when you have an exchange and stuff like that, but it's different when you're misleading.
Yeah.
I don't like it when people, because again, these people are coming into these martial artist guys to learn something and to get this thing, and then they're getting taught, like, a no-touch knockout that only works on the people that have been brainwashed to believe in it. Doesn't work on regular people. Yeah. Right? Because it's like, it works on the people that have been so indoctrinated to believe so that their mind can literally trigger it. Mind's a powerful thing, right?
Sure.
The mind can kick you into a friggin' panic attack, right? Just because you think something is happening, even though nothing's happening. And so, you know, they mentally believe it. Yeah. But those guys, they keep their students around, like, sort of a thick, like, let's say, iron curtain. You know, using
well, history.
Yeah, right. But they keep them around like this. They keep them in isolation, so they're never exposed. So, you know, even like these, there have been, like, fake Jiu-Jitsu black belts who did not allow visitors because they don't want the visitors to come in. You get a visitor coming in, it's going to make you look bad, right? Like, you're like, your visitor comes in, what's going to happen? If you roll with them and you get crushed by some blue belt, even though you're a black belt, you know, but you get some blue belt from a decent school, the students are going to start to go, huh, this is a little weird. Like, my coach just got smashed by a blue belt. You know, start to get them to ask questions. I think that could be an advantage if you're, you know, not real.
Well, just for even the students, like, is there any advantage for the students? I mean, for me personally, like, I'm like, look, when other people come in, like, I think we had Will, who's a big lapel guy.
Yeah.
Will comes
from
in.
Georgia. Yeah, great guy.
Dude, yeah, I roll with him. You know, he smashed me a couple times. Yeah. But, like, dude, he's like, yeah, let me show you this, let me show you that. Like, I learned so much from him.
Dude, I let Will teach a class.
Right.
I was like, bro, teach some stuff. I was like,
So
I
it's
want
like,
to learn.
we're not going to get that. Like, we'll only get like, hey, we got Nick at the gym who's a very solid black belt and also does a lot of lapel stuff. We're getting a different look though. You know, you get more like experience, you get new stuff maybe that you don't see. You know, at this tournament we just had over the weekend, there was a tournament, and like a lot of the guys like, hey, we got to start working these things we're not seeing as much, like deep half. There was a guy that was like a blue belt that was just deep half.
Well, and we work it. The thing is, we work those things, but it's a different. So there's a different thing in learning information ahead of time, and there's different when you learn information in the nick of time.
Yeah.
So now that you need, see, this is the beautiful thing about when you roll or do competitions or whatever, it brings up things where you're like, oh, well, I didn't realize this was a hole.
Yeah.
Now you know. So when I teach that stuff again, you're gonna remember it.
That's right.
Right. And so, but as far as the thing, it's like I've never understood I don't know of any, like, if you're a legitimate gym, everything else, I don't know of any advantage that you would have from isolating yourself from visitors. I think it's a good thing. Like, for instance, like when I love having visitors come out to the gym. Always have. You know, like we've always. I mean, and again, this is. I always stress this to people. My gym was already successful. The gym that me and my partner own was already successful before the YouTube channel. We already had visitors coming out before the YouTube channel. It's increased, right? But it was already going before then. We always had a no mat fee policy for visitors. So if you're just stopping in for a day, just come train, right? And we've had several people come to us because of that, where they would call up to different gyms and they'd say, oh, $45, $50, $25, whatever it was. And then we'd call them like, hey man, come train. You know, and we would have these purple belts and brown belts and all these people come. And we had lots of really good dudes come over the years because of that.
Yeah.
And it's been great because we get the benefit of having these different styles. Because, like, for instance, my buddy Bill, just to kind of go back to him as an example, you know, Bill works for the Navy, does these different things, has to do these training exercises and stuff. And I, you know, allow Bill to come and train. Great rolls with him, you know, good rolls. I've learned a lot of cool techniques from him, like little adjustments and little details on some drilling and stuff that he's picked up on his travels, because he's traveled everywhere, right? Done a lot of traveling, rolled with a lot of different people, and he's shared some of that stuff with me, which is fantastic. And then, you know, if you even want to think about it just on like the other benefit, dude gave me a show roll gi. He had a bunch of extras, and he came in, he's like, here, man, here's a show roll gi. I was like, sweet. So, I mean, one, I don't need that. I was just happy to have him come out, right? But from my own technical abilities, and even from the fact I got a gi, like, there's a benefit to being open like that. You know, like, so the gi is just kind of a chair on top, but really the technique stuff was good. One of his techniques I use like every time I train almost. So again, big benefit to me in that sense, where you're getting different things. This is where you look at anything like any type of situation where if you can get multiple experts in their craft, take that, doesn't matter the thing, just craft, and you start getting them like working together. It's so interesting, the stuff that comes from. I'm sure if you get together with a bunch of PTs, you guys are going to start spitball. Oh, I do this thing with them and I do this thing. You're going to get some cool ideas, you know? So then there's only a benefit from having it. And I think that the only people that would really benefit from closing things off would be people that are trying to keep the students in more of an isolation thing, because maybe you don't want to look bad or, you know, whatever. Which I don't.
Maybe a red flag, possibly.
Possibly, yeah. I don't know.
Unless it's like tradition, or some gyms are very like formal, like very tradition. Like I was reading that. So Robert Drysdale, he's got that book, and I was reading that, and I think initially like Elio Gracie did not want people like going to other gyms. I think so. I'm pretty sure it's what I read. So it was interesting to me, like how, and that was, I think, early on. I think it really wasn't. You didn't really try. It wasn't very open. Like
it was that way when I first started.
You're going to this gym? No, we don't want you there, or I don't want you cross training other places. So I don't know, but I think like everybody's. I think the internet and everything, all this knowledge that's out there now, people want to learn, and like I think sharing techniques with each other that's one of the best gifts you can give someone. You know, give them a technique they can use over and over. Yeah,
I think some of that comes out of fear.
Sure.
You know, I mean, like for me, it's like if you're not doing a good enough job of what you're doing, and you're not giving people a good enough experience, and you're afraid for them to go somewhere else, then you need to step your game up. Like on the way you deliver service and whatever the value that you give to these students. But I think that, you know, back in the day, even when I first started, like training was kind of a no-no. You just didn't go training at different gyms, you know. But Especially if it was a gym that was like, so here's the thing. So I remember we could train at gyms that we pretty much knew we could smash everyone. Because, there were some gyms where you just knew that they weren't tough. So you'd go there and like go cross train and you'd feel like you got an ego boost because you'd be like, man, I'm a white belt and I just smashed all the blue belts, and then that's fine. But then it's like, if you went to another gym where the training was good, come back and how to go, oh man, I got smashed by this one guy and this guy beat me. I don't want you to train with anymore. Like, cause then it's like competitive, But reality is that most of the time, like at least for me, like when I would go train at places, I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to go see. I just want to go test things out. But it's like my group is here. This is where I train. I just want to go see what happens. I just want to go train. Like, we have guys that go to open mats and stuff all the time. They go train, whatever. It's fine. And again, it's like if someone leaves anyway, they're not my possession anyway. That's the way I look at that. The student's not my possession. Yeah. I don't own them. Right. Granted, I am very close to some of you guys, and some of you guys, like if you left, I'd feel, oh my god, I would be super hurt from it, just because I really like you guys.
Right.
But I don't own you, so you can do whatever you want to. It'd be one of those things where it's like, that's my friend, that's the person I really like. We have 10 years of training together and getting to know each other. I know his kids' names, whatever. Yeah, it's like, oh man, he left. Oh, that sucks. But it's because it would be you wouldn't be seeing a person that you enjoy seeing as often, not because of, oh, my student left to go to another gym. It'd be more of a personal connection thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you think and you've got a few years now of experience, do you think people train with you differently since you're kind of more well known? Like, most people know.
What kind of people?
I don't know. Just
people, our students.
Like, do you think like if you go to another gym, do you think that if you it's more of a big deal? They're like, oh, I want to crush that YouTube guy. I want to see if he's legit. Do you ever get that?
I wouldn't say that I don't think that they want to crush me, but they probably do want to test themselves more. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure,
you should.
Right.
You should want to test yourself against black belts and higher level belts, right? Like if you're a lower level belt, there's nothing wrong. Like, again, it's intention that matters. You should want to test yourself against belts as you like when I would travel. If I was traveling when I was like a lower belt, even now, I want to see if they've got a tough black, I want to roll with them. Let's see. Like, I went to like the gym that I was talking about where the guy like looked at me. They had a guy who'd won Master Worlds as like a brown belt, super tough dude. I was like, I'm gonna roll with this guy. And I roll with him. Now, and we had a battle, right? And I was able to pass his guard or whatever, and that was like the end of the match, right? So, I mean, we really basically went back and forth, and I finally passed his guard. Now, when I rolled with that guy, I wanted to test myself against him because he was tough. I had no ego about it. It's just like, I want to test. We're martial artists. This is what we do. Like when you watch the old... my favorite martial arts movie, right? My favorite martial arts, most influential martial arts movie of my life, sadly, is Bloodsport, right? It is what it is.
It is. Yeah.
And in every 80s movie montage, what do you see? There's the scene where the person trying to get better, this is Rocky 3 too, right? There's the person that's better, that's teaching or helping, and then you got the person that's coming up, that's learning, and then slowly they get better, right? And in Bloodsport, what happens? He's trying to fight him, and he can't even hit him, and the Shidoshi Tanaka is just moving around. I mean, there's like just not even close to a fight, and by the end of it, he's getting the better of him. Right? And Rocky 3, the first Rocky's like, he can't move and move like Apollo wants him to. He can't move, right? And then by the end of it, what happens? Apollo, he's catching up Apollo. There's that scene where they're running in the sand and they're like neck and neck. He starts catching up. That's what you want to happen, right? You want to test yourselves. You always want to test yourself. So if you're training up against someone, sure. Like if they go up against me, they should want to test themselves. Like, let me see what I got against this guy. He's pretty tough. And I see it as a mark of respect in some ways, because, if you have it's different if you're like, I got to take this guy's head off. It's a different thing though when you can feel that people just want to test themselves. Yeah. Right? That's a mark of respect because it means you're good enough for me to want to test myself. Because if you sucked, I'd be like, well, I don't even have to now. I'll just play around this guy, right? So for me to want to push myself against you, that's a mark of respect in martial arts, in my eyes. Again, there's different intentions, but you can always kind of get the vibe of someone
for sure
when they're coming at you. And like when I was training in Montana, you could tell those dudes were kind of like they wanted to come at me, especially black belts. They wanted to come at me. They did. There were some good moments where we were like slipping around and stuff like that, and going after each other. It was good. But yeah, you should want to.
What's Montana like? Like, is it
gorgeous?
Pretty spread out? Like, there's not a ton of gyms, probably, right?
There was actually a good amount of gyms.
Really?
For the amount of people in these places. There were a lot of gyms actually.
Yeah.
Like, so for instance, where we were, they have a straight blast gym.
Yes, that's where you were at. Right?
Yeah, but they have 3 of them. So that basically there's Kalispell, and then about 15-20 minutes north there was Whitefish, and I think it's south of that is Big Fork or something like that, right? And they had a gym in each one of these cities. Now these cities aren't huge. Like I think Kalispell's 20,000-40,000.
That's crazy.
And then you go up, and then like I think Whitefish is like 10,000 or something. And it's like they're not very huge.
Wow.
They're not huge cities, but they had gyms for each one of them. And it's like it's interesting when you travel, because like I've been to some places and you'll find gyms in all sorts of different places. And so, there was some good training there and good facilities and everything else. So
that's interesting. Yeah, because I didn't know what to expect. Like Montana, you think it's all rural, it's spread out. There's just
mostly
so much
it is
beautiful, like scenery. But other than that, there's like probably nothing else to do unless you're an outdoorsy person.
Yeah, Kalispell was cool. It's a nice city. Had some decent little restaurants and good training. And some good scenery. So like I said, I'm going to try to go back there in the summertime.
Yeah. How was your podcast? Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun talking to him. I honestly didn't know who Andy Stumpf was at first. Yeah. Just because I tend to be kind of a hermit at times, so I don't see everything that's going on. But then I was actually talking to one of the guys in the gym, and I was saying, yeah, this guy Andy Stumpf messaged me about a podcast, and he goes, oh, and he like was holding up his phone. He's like, I'm listening to his Cleared Hot podcast right now. I was like, oh, cool. And so I listened to a couple of his podcasts, and I was listening to him, and the dude seemed like a cool dude. He didn't come across as some like monstrous ego or anything like that. Super chill. So I was like, yeah, he sounds like a fun guy to talk to.
He was on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I think he's been maybe once or twice. I don't know, but he's pretty wild what he does. I mean, he has that little squirrel suit.
He does the squirrel suit,
and then like
stuff.
he flies. he was a Navy SEAL, I believe. Correct?
Yeah, he was a Navy SEAL. He was a Navy SEAL, and then was a SEAL instructor. Which we talk about on the podcast, because there's some interesting sort of parallels with that, and like when you like some of the stuff that he saw, like coaching or teaching SEALs, and then like sometimes I'm teaching students, and you kind of see these crossovers, obviously different extremes, but you still see some of the same like things popping out. And we talk about that, and actually I have a little clip that'll be posted on the channel later on this week, where we kind of talk about that a little bit.
That's cool. Yeah. Interesting, because he's I've listened to him talk. I've listened to his podcast too a little bit, and it's really interesting guy. He's done some cool stuff for sure.
But so I mean that's that. I mean, so if you guys are going to travel at a gym, one, I would call ahead of time, check with them, see what kind of rules and things like that they have, just things you need to know. When you go in there. I sound like I'm 4. I'm a toddler. Voice is going. How you guys doing? But if you guys do go to a gym, make sure you go in with the right intention. It should be something where you want to like learn a little bit, train with some people, get some good training in, but you don't want to go in there with this idea of headhunting. Again, there's a time to headhunt, like when you're competing and stuff like that, but when you're just traveling and training, like, again, there's nothing wrong with beating people. Like, you can submit them and all that stuff. But again, it's the intention really matters. It's just like when if I, like, for instance, like when we joke sometimes with each other, you and I, the intention matters. When I'm joking about you, if you're joking about me, the intention is nothing but friendly, right? But if I was to go into it with an intention of being mean or hurtful, you could tell. And so the intention of your rolling matters. Like the way that you go in there, your mindset, your intention is going to show up in the way that you move on the mats.
Right.
So go in with the right intention, right? And again, there can be a long-term positive benefit to you later on where you develop these relationships, because I can tell you of like dozens of really cool relationships that I've held for over a decade from simply being cool. Like just being cool and respectful and hanging out with people and training with them. I mean, and they've it's so many different weird ways that they've sort of helped me out later on, And again, it's not all about helping yourself, but it's just one of those things where it's neat where when you put good energy out, it has a way of coming back to you later on. Right. So there's been lots of cool relationships that I've developed through roles or training in jiu-jitsu where I'm just trying to be cool with the other person, and that kind of thing. And then that comes back later on. So again, be just going with the right intention. And then I mean, that's kind of the gist. I mean, those are a couple just really simple ideas to go in with you. And then again, have fun when you're rolling and kind of go from there. So
awesome.
Yeah. So with that said, guys, if you guys have some questions, you can start throwing them in. I'm going to start with, we got the first one here, which was Jay Tarofsky. Hope I'm saying your name right, Jay. Jiu-Jitsu in general, exercise with zero equipment, lockdown. So a couple things for you. One, here's the big thing. Whether it's jiu-jitsu related or not, think about this. Your body is the machine. It is the vehicle that you sort of navigate jiu-jitsu with, right? And the more in shape that body is, the better off you will be when you come back from lockdown. So for instance, years ago when I was a white belt, I had my initial start about a month and a half of training, and then I didn't have a car for about 5 or so months, and so I wasn't able to train. During that off time, I lifted weights, I did cardio, I did all kinds of stuff. I was keeping myself in good physical shape. When I came back to train, and I also watched a lot of instructional videos too. When I came back to training, after that layoff, I actually didn't really skip much of a beat. I wasn't quite in the best match shape as far as like cardio wise when I'm rolling, but I was able to pick up right where I left off because my body was not in bad physical shape. The biggest problem that I see most people have when they are not training jiu-jitsu is that they're not. A lot of people get into jiu-jitsu as a way for fitness. A lot of people typically that I see in jiu-jitsu are very. They don't really necessarily like working out, and so jiu-jitsu is their way of working out without having to think about it, right? Because you don't have to really think about doing the right stuff when you're trying to fight someone who's trying to choke you. You just have to go. Well, you need to be mindful of your fitness and your activity and everything else, even more so when you're not training. Because what ends up happening a lot of times is jiu-jitsu it creates this anchor for people a lot of times where if they're doing the jiu-jitsu, then they start eating right, because they have feedback in their body. They start, working out a little bit more, maybe doing some strength conditioning. They start doing all these different things. Well, when jiu-jitsu falls away, that anchor falls away, and then the thing that they were doing now isn't there, and they start letting all those other things slide, and you just see them gain tons of weight and just kind of chill out and on their dieting and their fitness and everything else. I would sort of tell you that has to be number one. So going back to it, if you keep yourself in shape, you're going to be able to come back to jiu-jitsu just fine. What I would say is if you've got zero equipment, first off, see if you can get some equipment. You can buy like bands. You can literally buy resistance bands, and you can do a ton with resistance bands. Literally just some different bands. You can get like $15. You can buy a whole set of them. You can get some pull-up bars for your doorways that actually don't suck and aren't going to get you to fall down and break your face. But because you've seen those fail ones, right? But there's a lot of really cheap equipment out there that doesn't require a ton, right? But there's some things you can do. But assuming you have no equipment whatsoever, you could easily do, like on my channel, there's like hip movement drills. Like there's different like solo drills. You can do all sorts of body weight exercises. You can do all this stuff. You can go for a run. You can go for a walk. You can diet. You can stay on a good diet and make sure you keep your body weight down, because that's going to be beneficial to you when you come back. You can do all these things. It doesn't require equipment or a partner to do any of this stuff. But I would say that, that kind of stuff would be really, really important. I also, if you want like a master person at like movement, I have a buddy named Ryan who runs GMB Bodies, Gold Medal Bodies. Yeah. Really cool website.
Good stuff.
I've got a couple of his products. They're very fun, very interesting, some really difficult movements. But it's a GMB, Gold Medal Bodies. You can look him up. And he has some different courses that he sells on like body weight sort of movement, like moving like a machine. The dude, he's a Jiu-Jitsu, I believe, purple belt, was a pretty good Judo black belt, and was also like a junior national, gymnast, right? So dude was, very, and if you watch him move, he moves amazingly. It's all inspiring to watch the guy move. And so you could do some of those things. And the reason why I say that's good is because when you're doing these difficult movements, you're forcing yourself to have feedback with your body, because really that's one of the neat things about movement. When you move around and you do stuff, you're having this feedback from your body. A lot of times people, this is one thing that happens. A lot of times people don't realize how bad a shape they are in until they start moving and working out. Right? It's very easy to, eat honey buns and ho-hos and eat McDonald's every day and feel like I'm fine. And then all of a sudden you try to go for a jog, or you try to lift some weights, or you try to do jiu-jitsu, or you try to do anything, and you realize, oh damn, I'm out of shape, because you have no feedback. And so keeping yourself and doing some challenging movements, doing some body weight movements. You can get on YouTube and look up body weight movements, whatever you want. Doing those sorts of things will continue to keep that movement capacity up that you'll need for jiu-jitsu, but it'll also keep the feedback going where you're tuning into your body on a regular basis, so that if you start letting other things slide, you're going to know that it's happening, and you can kind of keep that at bay. Because if you keep yourself in shape, you keep the movement capacity going, your movement capability, you keep your body strong and healthy. Coming back to jiu-jitsu, it'll happen like that, no problem. So
It's gold medal bodies. Is that correct?
Gold medal bodies. It's like GMB I think IO or something.
Yeah, somebody was asking about it. I'm trying to think here. Like body weight stuff, you know, I think if you don't have a ton of equipment, my suggestion is a lot of like single leg, you know, balanced single leg exercises are really helpful. I mean, just even like just working on your mobility, working on solo drills, just making sure your brain and your, you know, your body are kind of in sync a little bit, just the best you can. It's not you're not gonna be able to replicate the,
you can't.
the training. You can't. But I think that can help some.
But, and the thing is if you're doing something, then when you come back, it's easier to come back.
Transition's easier.
Yeah, it's kind of it's like thinking about it like if nothing you can do right now can replicate that training, and essentially you know you're going to lose progression. It's just going to happen. You're not trained jiu-jitsu. It's just what's going to happen. But I can tell you from my experience, I'm sure you have experience with it too. If you're in decent shape when you come back, it's very easy to pick back up.
Yeah.
You know, but if you let everything slide and you just start eating whatever the hell you want, you don't work out, you don't keep yourself in good physical shape. I mean, when you come back, it's going to be rough.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to run into a lot of injuries early on.
And it's discouraging.
Oh yeah, it's discouraging.
You feel like, oh God, I forgot everything. Well, you didn't really forget it. Just your body, your brain's telling you what to do, but your body can't do it.
Right.
You've lost
that
connection there. Yeah. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Chewy, there's somebody that was asking 6 months.
By the way, guys, if you ever come to Louisville, if I can make a recommendation for coffee, I always send the people here. This is I get nothing for this. I just love their coffee. It's called Synergos.
Yeah.
Synergos. Best coffee in town, in my opinion. Them and maybe Quills. Best coffee.
Yeah, they're good.
They're good.
Synergos.
They roast their own beans. They're delicious. So if you ever come to town, that's the place to go.
Let's see. Guys, send us some questions. Why don't we do a giveaway? Do you want to do a giveaway?
Let's do a giveaway.
What's
the first one?
Well, let's see if Matt still on here. Matt, if you are, Epic Roll, he's going to give away a sushi rash guard. So, Matt, if you find somebody on there, pick one. We'll see if you're at. We can pick. We'll do some gummies. Let's give away some gummies randomly.
Some gummies, man. Those gummies.
Let's see. Gummies are the best.
One of my students, he sent me a message today, and he sent me a picture of some gummies, and he said, "Man, you got me addicted to these damn things."
Yeah.
You know, I was like, man, I can't help it. I was like, I'm addicted to them too, so I use them all the time. I've got this this ring here that like measures my sleep and stuff.
Oh, is that what is that?
It's an Oura ring.
Aura. Yeah.
So I'm trying it out, but it noticed a difference when like I was taking stuff when I wasn't.
Really?
Yeah. So because it would tell me about sleep quality. So I just like it because I can I wear it all the time, and I can turn the Bluetooth off. Oh. So because I don't want to have Bluetooth going all the time, so I can put it in airplane mode, and then
that thing?
Yeah, and then I put it in it, and then I can sync it back up later on.
All right. So Matt's gonna pick somebody. We're gonna pick Chewy. Let's pick. Why don't you guys do this? Let's a number from 1 to.
I don't know.
Oh,
so this is for the rash guard.
Matt's gonna pick a rash guard randomly.
Yeah, so Matt's asking you guys why you should choose him for the rash guard. So why do you guys think you should get the rash guard? You got to give him something good.
And then Chewy, what do we have? You want to do a question? We're gonna give out some gummies as long as they're from Charlotte's Web, as long as they are legal.
So if you live in a place where you can actually legally accept CBD, we're gonna give out some gummies, and then you're wanting to. How do you want to do it?
I don't know. You decide.
All right. Well, we'll wait till Matt picks a winner first. When Matt picks a winner, then we'll decide, because otherwise it's going to get all like.
Well, if Matt does not pick you, if he doesn't, it's okay. Use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu30 on epicrollbjj.com, and you'll get 30% off anything in the store. And he's got a new gi. What's it called? What is it called? It's like a gray one. I forgot. He's got a specific name for it.
It's the ocean thing. So let me see. I'm gonna look it up.
It'll end up.
If you guys ever looked at my gray gi that I sold a couple years ago, well, they're never coming back. I'm never selling those again. But Matt has this one that looks very similar, called the Ocean Storm gi.
There you go.
It's gray and black. It's super slick. Again, if you like that gray and black sort of look, which I do, I think it's a slick looking gi. It definitely stands out amongst anything most people have. So if your gym is okay with the colors, then check it out.
Ocean Storm.
And then Epic Roll, Matt chose Chevy Guy 21. He said, because your response made me laugh. Let me go back and look at his response.
All right.
Epic Roll, choose me because I ride horses with both legs on one side of the saddle. I don't even know what that means.
Like on the side, like the little. I don't know why you would do that.
I don't know. Maybe that's like a horse joke or something. A horse. I know my girlfriend, if she was here, maybe she would know if it's like a horse person joke.
Yeah. And guys, we Charlotte's Web, we're working on the promo code. We don't have it. There's something going on with the promo code. So if you want the special promo code when we get it, just send an email to thechujitsupodcast@gmail.com and we'll get you a code that you can use on some CBD. But we'll get that working later on.
All right. And then as far as the gummies, so we're going to get you guys some Jiu-Jitsu gummies. Or Jiu-Jitsu gummies. They're not Jiu-Jitsu gummies.
These are some good ones, actually. These right here. These are the Calm. But I love the sleep gummies.
The sleep, and I like the recovery ones too with the ginger and stuff. Yeah. The little, they taste like, the problem is they taste delicious.
I know.
And I want to eat the whole thing, which I don't think would be a good thing.
Nope. We did our taste test that one time,
and
that did not turn out well.
Yeah. You will go to sleep. Even if it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you will go to sleep.
You will go to sleep, or I will put you to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That's from Billy Madison.
So what should we do for the gummies?
I don't know.
All right, so
we'll do a trivia question. Do a trivia question for yourself. Is there something that maybe some people will know and some won't?
I'll think about one of those in a second.
All right, guys. In the meantime, here we go. We got Sweet Baby Bladefoot sent us a little top chat. Let's see. I'm gonna read this. Hey Chew, been watching your content for a long time. Would you be open to a virtual seminar, and who would I talk to set that up?
Ben, I would be open to it. You can kind of let me know what what the details are. If you want to, shoot me an email or a private message. If you have Instagram or anything like that, shoot me a private message and I'll get to you after the podcast is over. If not, you can shoot me an email by going over to my website at chewjitsu.net, and there's like a question, like where you can ask me a question and just put in put in virtual seminar as a subject line, and I'll get back to you later today. But do one of those things and we can check it out and see what you had in mind, and we could set something up.
Martin Cologne asks, can I pass a drug test with these CBD gummies? I do not have the answer to that, and I don't know.
So, Martin, if you're worried about it, it really depends on the way that they test, because I've seen where some people it's no big deal, and other people have like a zero tolerance policy. So you would have to check with your job on how they test to be sure if CBD is okay or not. So,
if you guys have some questions, send them our way.
Let's go ahead and do this. If you would like the gummies...
What do you think?
I don't know any trivia.
No, for yourself. Is there any Chewy trivia that we should know?
Well, I mean, there's Chewy trivia that I could throw out, but I just don't know of like stuff offhand. That would be interesting. Let's see.
I don't know.
Look for a question. I'm gonna think of something for. I'm gonna think of some trivia for you guys.
Guys, send us a question real fast.
Well, there's plenty of them in there. You just gotta look for them. Let's see.
I gotta look for one, huh?
Park Vape says Chewy had a stroke. I didn't have a stroke. I'm thinking.
Hey, let's be nicer.
And then
all right, here we go.
Yep.
Gabe Brophy. They're asking, what is a good way to get out of a back mount face crank? Because my sparring partner always does this when he gets to my back, and I'm afraid he's going to break my jaw. Is that kind of a dick move? A face in practice with your partner, training partner? Is that kind of a dick move?
Are you training? Like if it's competition speed? Then no, you better be ready for it, because people are going to crank your face. If it's like just like whatever, it's just different. Jessica said, my girl said, how ladies rode horses back in the day with side saddles. So that's why.
Gotcha.
So it's not a dick move, but one of the things is you better keep your chin tucked and your hand should be up defending your face and your neck. Like, so here's the thing. When you get locked into something, it's infinitely more difficult to get out of it. So what you've got to think is, if your partner keeps cranking your face, your hand should be up by your face to protect, so that when he tries to crank your face again, you can be up there to block it with your hands. Whereas, if it's one of those things where if you're fighting other stuff for some reason and your hands aren't defending, and that makes it face crank easier. So one of the things you can do is when you look at someone, when they have a seatbelt grip, or really whenever a person has an arm over top of your shoulder, if they're in back mount and they have an arm draped across your shoulder, that is the choking arm. That's the arm that you need to be most concerned with as far as for submissions or the face crank. So what you could do is you could identify which arm are they always cranking your face with, which it's probably going to be their dominant hand, and then you grab a hold of that sucker and you hang on to it and you stop that face crank. And that's a way that you could start with, just to kind of in the beginning. So basically, if I know he's choking me with his left arm, then I'm going to get a hold of that sucker and I can hang on to it and stop the face crank, right?
Yeah, and higher level, like when Chewy takes the back, he's already like during the transition, he's going in for the choke. So like, don't start to defend once they establish position. Start defending or anticipating on the transition as well, because a lot of these high level people are going to, as they're taking your back, like in your tournament, as you were taking the back, you're already sinking in the choke. It was slick. So it's like as soon as you actually establish position, the choke's already sunk in.
All right.
So it was really, really slick. It was just kind of, and that's the time when somebody's not ready to defend. So anticipate, protect, because I mean, what are they going to do from the back? They're going to try to hold you. They're going to try to finish. So
here's one for you guys. Here's going to be our thing to win the gummies. And again, only answer this if you can accept gummies in your area, because they're legal, right? So for the most part, if you're in Australia or something, they're not legal there. How did I chip my tooth? How did my big old tooth get chipped? How did that happen?
All right, we'll look at some responses. Here we go, Chewy.
What's up?
I need answers. 1223. That's right.
I need answers.
Chewy, what are your thoughts on leaving my long-term gym? What are you?
Michael Soto wins.
Where's Michael Soto?
Michael Soto says your sister threw a video game at you. This is true. So real quick, we'll go back to his question in just a second. So some of you guys said my sister headbutted me. My sister beat me up. What it was is my little sister and I were watching a movie. And she used to do this. We used to watch movies in my bedroom before we'd fall asleep. And we were watching Land Before Time, Littlefoot. And then I told her we were done. She wanted to watch it again. And I told her we couldn't because I had to go to sleep for school. And then she threw, I think it was like Mario Kart. I think she threw like Super Mario Kart in my face. And it was like the hard Nintendo plastic.
Yeah.
She threw it and it hit my mouth. And for the longest time, like when I was in wrestling, I remember I had it capped, so I didn't have a chip for a long time.
Yeah.
And I remember it got knocked out in a wrestling match where someone headbutted me. And when they headbutted me in the match, like my cap fell out, and I spit it out and threw it to the side, and I pinned this dude because I was all pissed off afterwards. But I remember everybody thought for a while that's how it happened, and I didn't tell anybody for a long time. I was like, that was my little sister. But yes, my little sister did it. Michael, let me know if you don't, but if you have Instagram or Facebook, shoot me a message and we'll get back to you, and I'll send you an email address to get everything taken care of. If you don't, for some reason, let me know, and we can send you the email address through here right now. So there we go.
Yeah, all right. So let me see. We had a question. Yeah, here's another one. Somebody's been sending this. Hold on. I can't find it now. I just had. All right, here we go.
All right.
Azuna Hexa was asking this question. Hey Chewy, what do you think about applying? What do you think about applying for work at my local gym in order to finance the classes while juggling it with my studies in university? So, like, I guess working at your gym.
It's a great idea, bro. Yeah, I mean, like, if you can't afford it right then, figure out what you can do to help your coach, and then pay for it. It's a great idea, Like, I mean, for a while, I remember I had a guy that was like reposting some of my blogs and posting stuff for Instagram in exchange for his gym membership, So it's like, yeah. And then we've had people back in the day where, like would mop mats or would help do stuff around the gym. So yeah, it's a great idea. I think that's always a great idea if you can think about this way. Because I've heard so many people say, I can't afford my gym membership and this and that, which happens. I totally understand. I've been there before. So you figure out, like, what could you bring to the table? And this is just any time, right? This is about being resourceful. Because in your life, you'll find this, you may not always have all the resources, but you can still be a resourceful person. And so think about like, what could you offer your coach to help them out in the situation that they're in, and then in exchange for a gym membership or whatever it is that you need. And again, if you decide to do that, be doggedly determined to uphold your end of the bargain. Because I've had people, and it doesn't bother me too much. I just understand that some people just aren't going to do it. But I've had so many people come in and make that exchange. Say, hey, listen, I'm going to do X for you in exchange for the membership. Cool, no problem.
Right.
We make an agreement, and they don't uphold it. And so I instantly like, well, all right, like, so then like, I gave you a chance.
Yeah.
Whereas but then on the flip side, I've had other people that were great at it. And the people that do uphold that, like, I want to take care of those people long term. I want to figure out more things I can do with them.
Yeah. I think it can go really well or it can go really bad.
I mean, I have a guy that works for me full time now who started off like that, where he was just like, here, like, I'm going to help you out a little bit. Cool. You help me out a little bit. And then it turned into a position. I mean, this is how I became a jiu-jitsu coach. If you want to be honest about it, basically I came up to my coach when I was a purple belt, and I just said, hey coach, my old coach, I just wanted to help for two reasons. I mean, there's always a selfish reason, right? I believe that everybody does everything for themselves. There's always self-interest, no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're giving food to the homeless. Like, there's always a selfish self-interest, right?
Right.
Well, I wanted to get better at jiu-jitsu, and I heard on a podcast that and this is like one of the first jiu-jitsu podcasts back in the day, if you teach jiu-jitsu, you get better at it. You understand it more in depth. So I was like, okay, I want to teach jiu-jitsu. I'm going to do that. So I started teaching jiu-jitsu as a purple belt.
Yeah.
And then in turn, I got better at jiu-jitsu, but I started doing it originally. He eventually paid me, but I offered to do it for free. I was teaching like once a week for free.
Yeah.
And my gym membership was no longer being charged, but again, I was teaching for free.
Right.
I just wanted to do it. Now, what ended up happening is I started teaching and getting good at this stuff and diving into that, and eventually worked myself into a position. It wasn't something where it was like, oh, you're the guy, here you go. It was like I worked myself into that position. And I think that there's some value to that, to basically some sweat equity. Like, say, I'm gonna work and basically show people that I'm worth something. I think there's a lot of value, because I mean, if you're a business owner, you understand this. There's so many people that come to you saying, hey, give me for things. But when you're saying, here's what I'm going to give you in exchange for this, and we do this dance, that's a different thing, and it's a different place. And I think it shows a lot of initiative on people, and especially if you deliver on what you're going to do, it's huge. Because I'll tell you right now, most people, and I don't mean this in any negative way, in any way, shape, or form, but most people don't deliver. Most businesses don't deliver. Most people don't deliver on their things when they're doing exchanges. It's always like they don't really get after it. I'm saying, like, really deliver what you're saying you're going to do. How many times have you gone to a business and you had a crappy experience,
right?
Or you just felt like you got the bare minimum, right? And then how many times have you guys own a business? How many times do you feel like your employees have given you the bare minimum? And then how many times, And then how many times have you had someone go a little above that, and how much that stands out? The people that go just a little bit above or even more, those are the people you're like, I've got to hang on to you, and I've got to take care of you, and I've got to do more for you. Those are the kinds of things. And so again, you can always stand out amongst everything by just delivering 100%. Like, to me, this is the way I look at it. I don't do anything to be mediocre, right? Like, I ask this to a lot of the students that come into the gym. I'm like, how many of you guys came here to be mediocre? Raise your hand. Nobody raises their hand,
right? Because
nobody dreams of being mediocre. And so for me, it doesn't matter what I do. When I say I'm going to do something 100%, I'm going to do 100% that I can into that thing. If I'm going to teach jiu-jitsu, 100%, right? If I'm going to, do a seminar, 100%. If I'm going to do every job that I've had, from the crappiest jobs that I've ever had to the coolest job like I have now, 100%. Didn't matter, because I was like, even when I was like bussing tables and washing dishes at a restaurant, I was going to be so good at that job that like the owners would be like, oh, this guy's really good, And like I even to this day, I mean, I saw one of them out, one of the owners, like a Whole Foods, right, and they still remembered me. Right, because I was that kid that was like grinding when he was a teenager, busting his butt in the back room, like just getting after the dishes and busting tables and everything else. Right. So you can stand out by being that way, 100% of whatever you do. So I think it's something that a lot of people don't possess. It's a quality they don't possess. People will just skirt by on the bare minimum. Don't ever be that way. Like, always go 100%. Don't be a bare minimum person. It's just it's a weak place to be. It sucks. Be 100% everything you do. And if you can't do 100%, don't do it. So
yeah, I think what can happen too is like you make that good impression, and then now you can't live without that person. Like it's like, oh well, things aren't going to run the way they need to run now without that person being there helping me. So, doing what they do. So I think like you can make yourself a vital part of that business or that that gym. But on the other hand, you can also, like you said, if you do the bare minimum, you're constantly having to get after that person, then it could really sour that relationship, and you're putting kind of all your eggs in one basket in a way, like your jiu-jitsu and then your work and all this stuff. So like if you do a bad job, and it can sour that relationship as well. So be mindful, like really take it seriously.
Yeah,
because I mean, you can like, you may not have that that good relationship with your coach, which is very important to have.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to get the most out of training, and jiu-jitsu is not going to feel I don't know, as fulfilling or as powerful as it can if you don't have, like, that's why the community aspect of a gym or like your training partners, you don't have a good relationship with those people if you're constantly seen as like this asshole that cranks on people and face crank, whatever you're doing,
or if you're even
the guy nobody wants to train with,
or if you're seen as the guy that doesn't like to train hard, or if everybody's training hard and you're kind of the guy that like just doesn't want to or whatever, it's like even people look at that negatively. You know, if people don't feel like you're giving effort, effort's noticed. And I think you're right. Like, you don't want to like sour the relationship. So if it's not something you want to really do, don't do it. But if you feel like you can uphold your end of the bargain, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, for sure.
Question here from Ooge or Oogie. I don't know how you say that. Says, do you train anything with kettlebells? I have used kettlebells before. I don't have any sort of qualms against them, but I don't use them currently. I think that they can be kind of neat. I think if you're a person that doesn't have a ton of equipment or a ton of space, I think it's great to have kettlebells because you can do so many different exercises with, just a handful of kettlebells. But I don't really use them all that much. I like them sometimes for things like you can do some shoulder presses and stuff like that with them, because sometimes I feel like that handle's nice. You can do obviously cleans and snatches, single legs and stuff like that. Very cool. I think they're very, very helpful. And I think they have some cool stuff, but I don't necessarily use them all the time. So,
all right, I got one. Any advice on finishing the triangle choke when your opponent stacks you, or any counters to that when you get stacked? I keep throwing up triangles before I can cut the angle. I get stacked.
I sort of refrain from a lot of like technical questions when we're on video, just because it's so hard to explain. I've got videos on how to finish triangles. I mean, if you want to throw something out, it's fine. I don't do technique questions usually on because it's so hard to explain.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard to explain like all the details and without being able to like show someone, like, because I can tell you to hook the leg and cut the angle, work on the head, pulling the head down. I think that a lot of times you got to look at the triangle, the lock, and think about what's going on, right? You have the arm has to be in correct position where the arm is across the body so that the shoulder is pushing against the carotid, and you have to have the other leg snug against the carotid directly, and the choke happens by creating squeeze and then pressure against those two. And so, typically speaking, if you cut an angle, hook under the leg, pull the head down, these sorts of things, it's huge. It's important. But it would be hard to do that just without just talking or whatever. For me, anyway.
Just throw all the stuff off the table. Let's
right.
Let's just do full on.
Maybe we should do that one day. Do a podcast of jiu-jitsu, but just like almost like a live seminar or something. It'd be kind of neat.
You could do like a Zoom thing. Like, didn't somebody ask for a seminar?
Ben asked for a like a virtual seminar. Maybe we could do it like with these cameras. I wouldn't want to do it on Zoom. Zoom's kind of herky jerky. Yeah, this would be better off.
We could do it. We could do it like this. I'll just have to
set up the cameras or something. We have a mat room, or we have the room upstairs. Put some mats down there.
We can do it. It can be done.
Maybe we'll do it sometimes. Let's see here.
We'll do it at the gym. Ideas.
Let's do another giveaway.
All right.
I'm feeling generous because it's almost Christmas. When's Hanukkah start?
It's over.
Is Hanukkah over?
Yeah.
Okay.
8 crazy nights. They already happened.
So I'm going to give you guys. Let's give away. I'll give you a couple of my courses. First course that we'll give away, I'll give you access to my my half guard series.
Ooh.
So if you are a person, I'll sort of preface it with this: if you're a person that doesn't have long legs, if you're a person that feels like full guard kind of isn't your jam, half guard can be a great position. Half guard is one of my favorite positions. I have a number of students that use it. One of my students yesterday competed. He's an older guy. By older, I don't mean old. I mean he's like, like I think like 40 or something like that, late 30s, 40s, early 40s, and he was able to use his half guard in position and use it pretty well. And it's a way to play a different type of guard, because again, if you don't have those long legs, sometimes full guard just can be really difficult to use, and especially if you're even up against a really big person, you can't lock your legs around the person. Again, half guard can be a really useful weapon. So to get the half guard series, I will just get you to do this. Tell me why I should give you, there we are on this camera. There you go. Tell me why I should give you the half guard series, and we'll go from there. We'll just have some fun with it. Let me see what you guys come up with.
All right. Let me. Did we already answer the one about leaving a long-term gym? Let me ask that one.
What's that?
While we're waiting for some answers. What are your thoughts on leaving my long-term gym that has us grappling with dummies, wearing face masks, for another local gym that's back to normal? I feel like I'm losing skill.
So one gym's training and the other gym isn't?
Pretty much. One gym's doing grappling dummies and face masks, and the other one's back to full rolling. I mean, in my opinion, you could possibly say, hey, I want to get rolling and I'm going to go to this gym for a while, and then when you guys get back to normal, I'll come back. I want to get training in. So, I mean, I don't know if that's terrible, is it?
No, I think it's a tough situation. I actually had a question about this the other day, where a guy in his area, a lot of the gyms have opened up and started training, but the one that he was training at has not. The gym hasn't opened. Yeah. And it's not opening. The guy won't open until whatever. And so he's like kind of bummed, because he's like, man, I want to train, but all these gyms are open, and he's like seeing all of his people that he knows from the other gym training and having a great time, but he can't. Right. And so he's, but he doesn't want to be disloyal. I think this is the biggest thing. Again, I don't want to get into the whole argument of whether you should or you should not, right? That's, again, I don't want to turn this into that morality argument, which is what it gets wrapped up into. What I would say is, and this is how I always view the lens with it, is that you and your instructor do a dance. Your instructor, business owner, whatever, should be delivering something, and then in return, you guys exchange and you dance. And when it comes to having a gym open, their contribution to you is having a place for you to train, giving you teaching, doing whatever it might be. They're giving you something, right? And then you give your attention and your gym dues and all that other stuff. If you're getting something where you don't really want it, and I can understand. Again, I don't make no value judgment on anyone about it. We're in uncharted territory right now. Yeah. But if it's something you want to do, then I would go to that place and do what you want to do. And again, you can be upfront and say, hey, listen, once everything's back to normal, I'll be back. But I got to do something. I got to train. And if that's what you want to do, you got to do. Again, you live your own life how you want to, and you shouldn't feel necessarily guilty about that. Yeah. So I would say do what you want to do, and you can come back afterwards.
It is an exchange, like you said. Like I'm trying to pay for this experience or get this experience out of training. I think a lot of people realize the impact. Mental health impact, physical health impact that Jiu-Jitsu has had on people when it's taken away, or we're not able to train. It has a pretty substantial effect. Oh yeah. So if you feel like this is the best decision for you, the hard thing is to I think the kind of tricky thing is just going to the other gym and not saying anything.
Because then you got to talk to him. You got to be upfront about it.
You have to.
Yeah, you got to have integrity about it. You just got to go talk about it. It's not comfortable, but so what? Better to do it that way than where you don't burn the bridge. Right. And you're like, hey, I was being honest. This is the way I feel, and hopefully your coach understands. He may be upset,
or
but
she,
whatever, doesn't matter.
But I don't know.
The one thing is it's just what you got to do. It's not, like I said, it's not a comfortable situation. We're in uncharted waters. No, it's tough situation to be made. But again, if they're not delivering the service that you want, and you want it, you can go back. And I think, again, one of those things where I think that is maybe sometime in the future, eventually, we're going to look at exercise way differently. Like you said, with the lifestyle that's so much more sedentary these days. I think that in time, we're going to look at exercise very differently with the way that it affects our mental health. Sure. Right? Because, again, for instance, if you get, we talked about this before, if you get stressed out, you bottle it up. It gets trapped inside your body.
Yeah.
Your mind and body are all connected, by the way. They're not separated, you know. And then so, I mean, you look at your brain, it's at the end of the stem that goes down your body through your spinal column and then like transfers out through your nerves. It looks like a friggin' rooted plant, right? Like when you actually look at it, it's all connected. So like when you look at like young kids, when I talked about this the other day, when you look at young kids, when they get stressed out, what do? They get upset, they throw temper tantrums, they get angry, and they express it through their bodies. But as adults, we get taught that that's not okay, which it's probably not okay for society. Having a 35-year-old man throw a temper tantrum in a friggin' the back of a Kroger's probably not a good idea because he got upset that the last package of grass-fed beef was sold. Probably not a good idea. But having some sort of outlet's really, really important, right? Like, because again, that physical outlet's it's monstrously important.
Extremely.
Because we can all remember when we worked out really hard and you had that euphoric feeling of, oh, I'm good. Because you had, not only you had this endorphin rush and all these positive brain chemicals coming up. By the way, exercise has been shown to produce new neurons, which they thought for a long time wasn't even possible, right? So it increases the neuroplasticity in your brain, right? So you become like, they did some really cool studies where they found that like giving kids exercise before they had to go to school increased their ability to learn. Right. So not only are you making all these things better, but there's a thing that I don't know how we measure that, but we can all remember the relax of stress that comes from, I got done working out, where literally you can go through and do some of the most stressful stuff or the things that would stress you out the most or things that would piss you off the most. But because you got done training, working out, whatever it was, you're like, I'm good. Right. No big deal. Cut me off in traffic, or your boss comes down and whatever, they're nagging me again, whatever, you're ready for it.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when my mother was, basically on her deathbed, one of the most stressful times of my life, because I'm with her and I'm driving her to these treatments and I'm basically at her bedside every day in case she needed something. And it's very hard to be with someone that you can look at and you go, you're dying. I know you're dying. And this is hard to deal with, right? And I've got to put on this happy face for you every single day because I can't, we can't just sit there and just sulk because I've only got so much time left with you. It's hard to do that. But then I would go train and it would like dump all of it out. I'd literally be on the verge of tears coming into the gym. I'd go train. Oh, it's gone. Okay, good. Let's go back. Let's go back and be able to put on a good face to be there and comfort that person while they need it. Right. And so, again, I think that people, like I've said this before, where they're like, it's super important. And people were like, poo-pooing on people who say they need it for their mental health. But when you look at the studies where they talk about the effects of like things like SSRIs and drugs versus exercise is on par with them. Right.
It's like better.
Yeah. So there are people that 100% need like stuff to balance them out. But a lot of people find that they're able to get off of drugs when they get onto exercise. Like I have friends that were using different anti-anxiety medications, antidepressants, and all this stuff. They train on a regular basis and they don't need medication anymore. So it's a big thing. It's a big thing. And we undervalue it. Right. I just like, when we were talking to Brian McKenzie, and he was talking about how in 20 years, we're probably going to look back at like social media, the way that it is, and look at it and be like, it's just like cigarettes, where they were basically making it addictive and they knew they were doing it, but they kind of masked it. Right. Yeah. It's going to be the same way. It's like we're eventually going to look at exercise like, man, this shit is really important.
Yeah.
I mean, not only for your health so that you don't die when a random virus comes through. Right. But also, so, hey, like, you can vastly improve your state of being on a daily basis by exercising. This is like someone sent me a message when I was in Montana, and they're like, dude, why are you lifting weights while you're out in Montana? I was like, bro, because I feel better. Like, it's my way of feeling better. Like some people that they do other stuff. For me, I work out. Like when I got in there, I was feeling foggy from the flight and everything else. I went and lifted weights. I felt amazing afterwards. Then went and trained, felt great.
Yep.
Shook it all off, felt great. So I think exercise is super important. And so, if it's something that you need in your life, go get it, man, and just do what you got to do. Let me go look through some of these because we got the thing about the half guards. I'm gonna look through these, and you can kind of maybe do one on your own.
Oh, I gotta do one on my own. Okay. All right. A bunch of these questions.
Actually, let's look through the half guards ones. So.
All right, go ahead.
All right. And then I want to answer Chevy Guy 21. He said about considering expanding my gym. I'll talk about that in a second.
Let me see. Somebody said they need. I don't know who it was, but they said they need it because they only have half their legs. I don't know if that was a joke or not, but
I've got a friend who's got a 1.5 legs.
That's right. He's fun to roll with. He's a good dude. People always getting stuck. Yeah, I think for me, as far as while Chewy's looking, for me, just getting back to training was just like I was just so much better. I was so much more patient.
Mm-hmm.
Just there's just so much. I don't know. I just felt like I was getting back to my normal self, because it was just a lot at once. You can't do your normal things with being in isolation, all that stuff, and it's just crazy. So I got my interesting story. I got my bachelor's degree in physical education, and they're starting to take out PE in all these schools.
Oh man!
And because they want to add more science, math, all that stuff, but they realized kids' scores were going down.
Yeah.
And kids were sick more often. And not to say that you get 1 hour PE a couple times or once a week or a couple hours. But what it does is actually introduces these kids to sports, and they can start doing sports outside of school. And because sometimes parents work and they're super busy, and so the kids never get exposure to sports, so they never find something they like. So I think but it's just exercise is so important, and especially being I can't sit for hours upon hours now. How are you gonna expect kids or young people in high school or middle school to sit there in a chair all day long
right,
and listen to this teacher?
Yeah,
right,
and
on this board?
You wonder why they can't sit down and be still for 8 hours.
You're not supposed to.
I can't. I mean, I can't do it.
Either.
Yeah, and like I said, they did this thing. It was at a charter school where they did this test, and they had these kids hooked up to heart monitors and stuff, and they're working these kids out every day, and they found that there was a huge jump in their scores and everything else. And these were kids that were coming from not great areas.
Yeah.
And they were performing with kids that came from more privileged backgrounds. Yeah. And it tells you, it's we don't honor the body holistically. We look at everything with this intellectual gaze, this intellectual, I know this, that whatever. But there's so much more to the body.
Right.
And the body and the mind are connected. They're not separated. We this Western idea of where the brain and the body, it's they're 100% together. And if, again, when you get the body going, there's a lot of things that can happen up there. And so again, from getting that energy out and that stress out to waking them up, all these things, and you get these kids. I mean, I remember in high school, from my junior and senior year, actually my sophomore, junior, senior year, I always had it worked out that I had the weightlifting as my first class of the day. It was awesome. I'd go in and lift weights very first thing of the day. It was great. So I got to lift weights, and then I would go through the rest of my day. And it was always so much better on those days. I was lifting weights and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give away the half guard sweeper series to Amy Campo, and I'll give another one to Rusty Shackelford. Just because the name Rusty Shackelford, what is that from King of the Hill? Rusty Shackelford, it was the name that Dale Gribble would use, I think.
Do you want me to send you an email or what?
Yeah, so if you guys want to do two things. One, you can either actually, we should probably streamline this, otherwise I'm probably going to not know where the hell you guys are coming from. You have two choices. Well, if you don't have Facebook or Instagram, let me know. But otherwise, most people do. If you have Facebook or Instagram, you too, shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram. Let me know what your name was here, and then that you got the series, and I'll get your details sent up, and I'll have Jess add you to or add your account later on today.
I'll give away something too. Why not? Why not? I've got a hip series, a hip mobility and kind of strengthening and
fix those
series.
Hips.
Yeah, fix your hips. So,
here's the thing. So here's what I want you guys to think about before you get into this. So, if you've got, and I say this because this is important, hips take a beating, both from whatever. If you've ever had that pain, on the if you take your hand and you go just below your waist, and then right around your hips, right where your legs are meeting your pelvis, right there, and you start to feel around there. If you've had pain in that general area, then you, my friend, need to fix your damn hips. Probably would be helpful. And I think most jiu-jitsu guys and girls have had some pain in that area because of the muscles getting tight and everything else. And it can be a massive difference for both your hips and your knees and everything else if you get those things aligned. So, because anything that happens, let me see if I can use some verbiage. Proximally
is
will then work down chain distally.
Yes, proximal is like closer to the body.
Proximal.
Yep.
And
distal.
Then, look at me. I'm using that like jargon you guys use. But yeah, so but it's good stuff. So if you guys want to fix your hips, then I'm gonna listen to what
here's
Eugene
a
has.
link on here, but I'll just put it in. It's so I don't know. What should we?
That's up to you, bro.
All right.
I'll answer a question, and then you can think about what you're going to do for it, and then we'll give away something. So Chevy Guy 21 says, Jiu-Jitsu, are you considering expanding your gym to other states if you haven't done so already? I don't know, man. I thought so. I have a thing where I have a few people that are interested in doing affiliates with me. The thing about affiliates is so. Here's my thing. If someone comes on and is an affiliate, it's most affiliations are like, hey, you get to use my name and I'll come out for a seminar from time to time, and that's that. My thing is if I do an affiliate, one, I've got to know you a little bit. I've got to kind of get to know you. You're gonna have to come train with me personally. I got to kind of know you. I can't just like, yeah, I don't know who you are and you're gonna represent my name, right? It's not how it's gonna work. If you do become an affiliate though, and we start to work together, then you're gonna be working with both me and Joe to get your business running, because if your gym is going, I believe that every gym owner has a responsibility to their students to keep their gym open so that they can keep the place going. Because as we see by some of the questions in here, when the gym closes, that's a big deal to these people. It's not just like the grocery store down the street or the nameless, faceless corporation that you buy, cheap goods at went out of business. It's these people that I was connected to are gone, and this is hard for me. So I think you have a responsibility to keep your gym open. So it'll both be a thing where we want to help your business run. And so this way you can make sure those are going. I have a guy that does things like basically ads for different things to help your business go. So this way you don't have to think about that stuff, because that's something where I don't like to think about that stuff. I want to focus on teaching. I don't want to think about doing every little detail everywhere else. And then obviously you'd be working with me with the jiu-jitsu and everything else and that kind of thing. And so that's what we would be doing. But that's something where there would be a little bit more of a process to go through. So anyway, that's that. I haven't done that too much yet, but in some point I'm sure it'll come about.
What should I do for the hip stuff? I don't know. I do have a good question though that we can address.
What's up?
So I don't know. So here's the question. It was actually from David Harris, I think. I think people are saying that they do not want jiu-jitsu in the Olympics. Most people are saying, and he's wondering why exposure like the Olympics is bad for jiu-jitsu. We had a whole thing with Chris Howder on the last episode of the podcast talking about the Olympics and jiu-jitsu being in the Olympics, why that would be good or bad. Chew, what do you think as far as jiu-jitsu in the Olympics? Briefly, there's a bunch of forums. Yeah, we both agree that it's probably not the best idea.
I don't like the idea of here's my big rub on it. I don't like the idea of one governing body telling you the way that jiu-jitsu should be practiced. You can look at it and you can see what it did to judo, and I don't like it. Basically, judo used to be very much like jiu-jitsu, where it had all these different types of schools, where basically this school is more focused on newaza, this gym was focused more on the throws, and so you had all these different focuses everywhere. And even the skill sets, when you go back and watch old judo matches, they very, very similar to jiu-jitsu, where like they'd be on the ground working stuff. There's some one of my Japanese students, used to be my student, Hiro. Hiro sent me a bunch of like old like Japanese videos of like some of the because I was asking him, I was like, in Japan, who are the most like notable like judo people ever? And he was sending me these videos of these competitors who were doing judo way back in the day, like early on in its Olympic and its sport history. And I mean, these guys were doing clock chokes, and they were doing like stuff it looked like a grappling match,
right?
So they would throw the guy and get on top of him, and they'd be working grappling. But then the sport, because of different reasons, wanted to be like, we want to focus more on this. So if for some reason if they get thrown and there's really no action, stand back up.
Yeah.
If you throw them flat on the back, that's it. Which I think is cool, because again, that's supporting that I would knock you out if we were on the ground if I slammed you on your back. But you don't get a lot of time to work on the ground. And then they've also changed a lot of the grips, where You know, they had Sambo guys coming in the 80s doing all these different unorthodox grips. So they changed the grips, couldn't use those grips anymore. You can't double hand grip break anymore. So because they didn't want to have passivity, they wanted people to really lock up and go for it.
Right.
You can't shoot on the legs like you used to be able to. So you can't do like fireman's carries and shots that you used to be able to do because, again, guys were using them. They're like, we want this.
Yes.
And so I think that, to me, that takes away some of the creativity. Now, I like having tournaments in different organizations where we like, look, if you like this, we have you here. If you like this type of style, we have you here. And I think that gives more people of different styles more opportunities to be successful because, you know, if you don't have a brutal, hard-nosed takedown game, you're going to struggle at competitions like, I mean, for instance, like if you go to ADCC, you better be damn good off your back then, right? Because otherwise you're going to be giving up points right out of the gate. You're going to be getting a negative point for pulling. And so you see a lot of the ADCC matches, a lot of those guys have good wrestling. You can see that they go into those competitions really primed to the wrestling. Same thing when you go to like IBJJF, you better be very particular about the way you pull or go for takedowns or whatever. Whereas you watch an EBI, very different way of exposing their jiu-jitsu to that rule set. You know, so I like seeing that because you get this wide variety of what could it look like. Yeah. How can these people play with these different styles and using essentially the same techniques, but the way that they use them is different. I like seeing that. And I think you would lose that if you had one governing body became basically, this is the gold standard. This is what we're all chasing. And then this is the way that we should practice, and this is all that we should practice. Because if you had the Olympics, then everybody's going to want to be in the Olympics.
Right.
So whatever the Olympics says, well, then that's what we're shooting for. All right, well, that's what we're going for.
Yeah, you stagnate the progression, the growth, the evolution. All that stuff stops because essentially you're only working towards one thing.
Right.
And so then it also takes all these other competitions and almost makes them kind of like not as important.
Right.
So
like,
and I think there are, you know, there's a place for Master Worlds or Worlds, Gi Worlds, no Gi Worlds, ADCC, which is kind of, you know, really, I think the top of the top as far as jiu-jitsu. I mean, again, if you're looking at the Gi, probably
IBJJF Worlds.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you're right. And the cool thing is by having this, like with not having such centralized control, you let the marketplace decide. What do you guys want to see, right? EBI came about. If it flopped and people didn't want to watch it, guess what would have happened? We wouldn't have viewed in. But people liked it. Yeah. And people enjoy watching it. So what happens? People watch those matches because there's some really good matches in it, and they enjoy the rule set, so they tune in. So then the marketplace, the people that do this, they get to decide what they want to see. Yeah. You know, if nobody liked what the IBJJF is, I mean, people can gripe and moan and complain about the IBJJF all they want to. If people didn't like it or didn't feel like it was necessary, people wouldn't go to it. Right. They have a choice. They wouldn't go to it, but they do. People do, and I like watching a lot of the matches. People can, you know, poo-poo on it, but I enjoy watching a lot of point-based competitions because I think points sometimes spurs more activity. The fight to wins. Even in a friggin' pandemic, they've been doing all right. And again, people, that organization's been paying a lot of grapplers every year, a little bit more. And if the marketplace did not want to see the matches that they put on, they would not see it. So again, I like having that decentralized ability. So this way, people can be competitive with one another. And they can pop up and say, hey, we've got this new idea for a competition, or we've got this new idea for a tournament set. Let's see if you guys like this. Yeah. And if you like it, we can do more of it. But if you don't like it, it'll kind of go away. Because there's been just as many competitions as we just talked about have gone away. Like there was one where, like, you know, I remember a couple of years ago where it's like they gave points for pushing people out of the ring. You know, and that tournament set, I remember there was one of them, and I don't think it ever happened again. You know, or you had like things where, like, you know, for instance with Metamoris. I don't think the format was very good.
They had draws, a lot of draws.
Draws, very boring. I mean, man, it was boring because you didn't have. There needs to be something that says like there's going to be a winner out of this, right? Like so, for instance, with like a fight to win, someone wins, someone loses. They have judges. If it's a EBI, like you get those overtime rounds, right? And so they're trying to create a winner and a loser. Whereas like those EBIs, you have a 20-minute match. And it's like at the end of it, it would just be draws. So, you know,
there's no incentive.
There's no incentive. So if you're up against a tough competitor, there needs to be reward dangling at the end of that risk. Yeah. Right. Here's the win. And there also has to be some deterrent or some incentive not to lose too. Because if you have the possibility of losing, well, then you've got to do something because you don't want to lose. But if it's basically a wash, You can just like, oh, we almost got each other, whatever. I'll
sure.
come back next time, which was a lot of times what you'd hear.
Yeah.
And so I think that, again, and people didn't buy it, and like they were selling out all this stuff, and it just didn't work. So I think it's like you let people decide what they want to see rather than, all right, we're the central governing body, and this is how we're going to do it now, and now you guys, this is what you're getting.
Yeah. I think you also stop a lot of these other promotions from being successful. I think it hinders them. It makes it very difficult for them to be successful, especially if it's another rule set that completely doesn't. That's very different from the Olympics. Then that would be the case for that. All right. One joke coffee.
What coffee?
I don't know. All right, guys. So give me just write down why you think you should get the hip course. Do that randomly, and then you guys can send me an email or I'll pick out who it is, and then you can send us an email at thejujitsupodcast@gmail.com. Sure, you got anything?
Yeah, I'll take a look here. Got some of these questions and everything else.
Somebody wrote greater trochanter.
What's that?
The greater trochanter. It's like an anatomical landmark for the hip. I like that. Shelby Neely. I like that. Good for you. Let me see if there's anything else that pops up. Oh, Isaiah Duarte said, because my hips don't lie. That's a good one, too.
Because my hips don't lie.
I think coffee. Is coffee someone?
I don't know,
Coffee and hypertension.
Coffee and hypertension. That's a real problem. Drink too much coffee, you will have hypertension.
That's right. Don't do those. Yeah, so let's see. I think, is there one martial art you think is the most difficult possibly?
Martial art?
Or think of like boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling. Do you think there's one that's maybe more challenging than the others?
I'll say this.
It's a pretty random question, but I was just thinking, I think wrestling is probably...
I was going to say wrestling to me is by far one of the most exhausting martial arts. What was this, Andy, when we were like out there in Montana?
Yes.
One of the days we were like basically doing some like wrestling focused stuff, and he's like, God, wrestling's so tiring.
It is.
And because it's a lot. There's a lot of explosion with it. You're doing a lot of leg power. I mean, your shots and all this stuff. A lot of leg power. Everything's quick. Also, if you ever wrestled before, the rules do not support stalling. Right. So basically, for instance, in folk wrestling, which is like American high school wrestling, like you can't like when you're on the ground, you can't lock your hands together. Right. So like when they're in the down, if the person's in sort of a turtle looking position, you can't lock your hands together. You have to break them down while keeping your hands separated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you lock your hands together, you can sit there and hold them, and they don't want to allow passivity. You're going to have to keep moving to break that person down. Also in wrestling, like if you take a step back, you probably will almost immediately start getting warnings from the refs or get stalling calls, and you'll have your coaches trying to like just chew you out when you get back to the bench, because you don't stall in wrestling. You go forward, you circle, or you go forward. That's it. And so a lot of times, like you see where in jiu-jitsu it's a little different, where they like there's a lot more passivity. You can hang on to stuff and you can sit there. And the one thing that drives me bananas is the lack of stalling calls in jiu-jitsu. I mean, guys will just start back and pedaling. And you're like, dude, this guy's backward pedaling. He should be called for a stalling call. If I ever run a competition, which I want to this coming year at some point, there will be hard stalling calls. Like if you start backing up, stalling call. Do it again, stalling call. Like in like I'll give you 2 and then you're out. Done. Like DQ. Like there's not going to be any backing up BS.
Interesting. Because
I hate it. It's like, so you got to go. And then also a lot of the positions, like sometimes in jiu-jitsu, just the nature of it, especially we get like locked into weird positions. Like, you get in like 50-50 and there's a lapel thrown through. It's like, God bless getting out of that thing.
Right.
And then there's just a lot of different, it's also a slower tempo. And sometimes it needs to be like, so for instance, in a lot of bad positions, you don't want it. You don't, it's a bad idea to be reckless and a little too quick. You have to be smart. You have to be smart with your timing on when you go. And so it's just you can't get rid of some of the slow tempo part of jiu-jitsu, because you have to have it as you're setting things up. Because if you get to a good position, you don't want to be too quick where you expose and give too much space away and whatever else. And likewise, if you're in a bad spot, you need to be very careful with your next move, because if you do too quickly and isn't what it needs to be, you could get choked or submitted or whatever it's going to be. But wrestling to me is the most exhausting martial art that I can think of. I mean, anybody that's ever trained with a wrestler, if they're wrestling, they're in friggin' phenomenal shape. They just train hard, and they have to. And the rule set that they run by does not allow passivity, so they have to have a motor on them. And again, these matches are typically 6 to 7 minutes, depending on where they're going, but 6 minutes most of the time. 6 minutes sit, and you do that forever. So it doesn't the jiu-jitsu, the matches get longer, right? As the better you get. Wrestling, you just go faster. So you know what I mean. So you look at you could look at like an Olympic level guy, and then you look at like a high schooler, and they might have the same time limit. The only difference is when you watch the two matches, one of them's at a furious pace that doesn't stop. The other one's like they might have a little bit more breaks and stuff like that. But it's just a different rule set. So I think that wrestling to me is the most exhausting martial art that I can think of, just because of the nature of what it is. Yeah. Striking also can be, I mean, striking, as you get better at it, it's different, but like striking can be exhausting as well, especially in the beginning when you're not used to it. It'll zap you just getting like kicked and punched or whatever else. Because just whenever you get hit, it hurts. It sucks. And it takes a lot out of you, and the stress that you get from trying to do stand-up sparring definitely wears you out. Yeah. But I would say that, stand-up sparring is different. Whereas like stand-up sometimes is over time, you can hit the bag and you can do the pad drills and you can do that. Wrestling, even when you're in good shape, it's always exhausted, even if you're not sparring. Yeah. So I just think it's probably a little bit more exhausting physically.
All right. Chewy, go ahead. I'm going to pick someone.
Okay. Let's see here.
Guys, if you have any more questions, send them our way.
I'm gonna go to the very bottom and see what
all right, I'm gonna give it to Isaiah Duarte. He said, because my hips don't lie, and I like that. Well done, sir. Just send a message on or an email to thejujitsupodcast@gmail.com, and I'll get you the hip course. Thank you. Somebody mentioned something about having tight IT bands, and then also foam rolling to correct that.
What do you think about that?
Both. Well, first of all, you can't really stretch your IT bands. So your IT band is like this really thick, like it's like a thin, but it's like very strong, almost like a leathery strap of tissue that kind of goes up the side of your leg. So you're really stretching more of the hip area. Now, foam rolling, the research isn't great on it at all. I think you don't really want to foam roll your IT band. I don't think there's a lot of benefit to it. Again, it can help sometimes temporarily help with some pain. I think just the pressure of it and maybe some blood flow to the area. But really, I foam roll barely, and I use a foam roller maybe just to kind of help warm up the tissue a little bit. Just to give some feedback to the muscles, almost like waking the muscles up. And then I maybe use it like to roll over, use it as like a fulcrum to like roll. I like it for my mid back. Just to kind of help open my spine up.
Thoracic spine stuff.
Yeah, and so that's primarily why foam rollers, if they help you, great. I'll foam roll some, but the research isn't quite there. Like I like it maybe after training more than anything, just to kind of help the tissue kind of calm down. That's it. But again, like just because the research doesn't say it's great doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. If you feel like it helps you, use it. And there's a lot of placebo and other things other factors go into it.
Yeah, I foam roll like once a week.
Yeah.
So usually I have like an off day, like a rest day, and during that rest day I'll like roll out and just kind of breathe and like open up my thoracic spine and roll out some of those muscles as I'm stretching and stuff like that. I foam roll first and then stretch. So it's like when I'm doing my stretching.
I think it helps. I think it feels kind of good, and I also like to, it does help. I think some of the blood flow. Because you're bringing, it's almost like rubbing your tissue.
Well, so I think it's more, like I said, it's that idea of feeling good. I think there's something to like feeling good and sort of decreasing stress and stuff like that. So I think it's helpful for that.
Martin Colon had a question.
Okay.
And thank you for the super chat. He said, how do you guys get ready for absolute divisions? Chewy, you had absolute?
I do absolute
recently,
all the time.
So
I've done absolute plenty of times. So here's the thing. You probably, Martin, I would imagine, you're probably like most people in gyms, you probably don't roll with people that are the exact same weight as you every single day, right? If you're like most gyms, you probably roll with a myriad of different weights and sizes on a regular basis. And so with that, really there's no difference for getting ready for an absolute division, all right? You're getting ready to compete against someone of a, different weight category, whatever, and that's it. And to me, that's no big deal. We do that every single day in the gym. Yesterday, a couple of my students, we were at a competition, and the couple of the brackets were a little small, and so they didn't have anyone in their division, or it was getting kind of late, and so some of the people had left. And so I would tell the student, like, hey, see if they'll let you go up a weight class. It doesn't matter. If you go up 10 pounds or whatever, I mean, you're rolling with people that are different of 10 pounds all the time. So just give it a whirl, And so I think that rolling in an absolute division really doesn't change that much. It's more of, to me, rolling in an absolute division is almost like rolling at the gym, right? It's like there's no longer a weight category. It's like different people. And then it becomes, to me, there's an interesting strategy to it, because every type, for the way I look at it, whenever I roll with someone with differing weights, differing sizes and stuff like that, the strategy that I'm going to play against them is going to be different, because first off, their games are going to be a little bit different because of their size. The size that they have is going to determine the kind of techniques that I have to play against them. And if I'm going up against a person that's this size, that's large or whatever, what's the best technique I have for them? What am I going to do against them? What kind of guard am I going to play against them? And so really, I think that if you look at it that way and you don't think of it as such a big deal, you just think, well, what do we got going on here? Okay, we're in the absolute division and whatever. All right, I'm going to go up against this person. And you just think about it that way and just think of it as a role in the gym, and just how would you beat a bigger person or a smaller person or this kind of person inside the gym? And that's kind of the mindset you take into it.
We're getting a lot of good questions now. A lot of good ones.
We got some good ones?
Yeah, well, let me see. Let's see. Adolfo Ferranda said, Chewy, sometimes online I hear black belts suggest train with intention. What exactly does that mean to you? I'm never really clear on what that means.
Train with intention. So we could change the word of intention with focus, right? So for instance, here's an example. And by the way, I don't think you should do this every class. I'll explain why. Let's say you go into the gym and you just go into the gym and you just go with the flow. You just see what happens. I'm just training. We're just rolling and see what happens. Well, if you do that, it's not a bad thing, right? Because there's a time where the gym can just be this place where you turn your brain off and you can just relax and just train and just have a good time and unwind. But if you're trying to get better, you should really be thinking about what is my goal today? What kind of technique am I trying to hit? What kind of position am I trying to work on? That kind of idea. For instance, when I was when I asked Eugene, I said, hey, what am I working on right now? And he instantly said, you're working on back takes. He knows. That's what I've been working on. It's what I've been hitting on people. I've been working on back takes. A lot of different really neat back takes, and I put together a kind of a cool seminar series for this year that I'm going to be doing with that. Because I'm trying to sharpen my game of being a back hunter. That's what I consider myself on the mats. So again, my back takes is what I've been working on. So when I was out training in Montana, I was training with different people. I wanted to see how those back takes work. My intention was to step on the mat and try to take the back. That's what I was trying to do. I didn't do it to everybody because some people didn't give me the opportunities that I was looking for. Other people did, and work with it. So really, it's about having a focus. When you're stepping on the mat, that's what I think of when we say intention. It's about saying my intention is to work on this thing. Now, your intention could also be it could be more mindset related, not technical. So for instance, let's say you get into the gym and back in the day when I was a white belt, I remember having noticing this thing where every time my guard would begin to get passed, I would start giving up. There would be the two little guys. If you ever remember cartoons, little dudes would sit on the shoulder, the angel and the devil. One's saying, what you should be doing. The other one's telling you the thing you probably shouldn't do. And I would have that kind of situation where there would be the one side of me saying, hey, keep going, don't give up. And the other side's going, hey, man, your arms are getting tired. Why don't you just let them pass and you can submit and you can restart? And I remember noticing it. And for me, I felt like I was being weak. I didn't like it. So I noticed it and I said, the next time I roll, when those little two sides of my personality pop up, the weaker side of myself and the stronger side, I'm going to remind myself to take the stronger side's advice, and I'm going to tell the other one to pipe down. And so I was ready for it. And so my intention that day when I was training, and for a while, was don't give up when they're passing, keep fighting. And so I did that, and it made a big difference. And so those can be ideas of intention. Just stepping on the mat with some focus, something that you're actually trying to work on actively. And that would be what we say of when we're talking about intention. And at least in my eyes, that's what it means. Your coach or other black belts might have a different idea. But when I'm talking about intention, it's about stepping on the mat with something you are trying to work on and being very deliberate with your training, right? And that's the idea.
Yeah. It really helps you. I mean, developing technique. I mean, I think huge for that. You know, really helps you give some kind of, because you can kind of figure out what you're doing well and what you're not, problem solving, but you're going towards a goal, and then you have little mini goals, and then I think it helps with motivation too if you struggle with like having direction or things to work on.
Yeah.
So
well, and it makes you better. Like, so there was a really cool book that I read years ago when I was becoming a new instructor. I started wanting to read up on books on how to make the training better and how to improve myself and everything else. And there was a book called Talent is Overrated. It was a book that was talking about one of the big ideas in it that the guy talked about was the idea of deliberate practice. So for instance, if a musician, they were talking about these world-class musicians. Let's say the musician had this song that they were trying to perform. Let's say they're playing on a piano or violin or something. Well, when they would come to a part that was very difficult for them, maybe there was a part of it that was very complicated in the way their fingers needed to move or whatever it is, instead of just playing the song over and over and over again from start to finish, what would they do? They would start to play that particular area that they were having trouble with. They were trying to deliberately fix that problem. Now, it was boring because they're no longer able to just play. Now they're just doing something that's incredibly repetitive because it's the same stuff over and over again. But the benefit is later on, they won't have trouble with that area. The way that I would do this in training, now I do this with my students as a means to manually make this happen. So let's say with my students, if we are working on a particular position, let's say we're working on back mount. I'm teaching them some back mount submissions and stuff, and I'm teaching them how to escape back mount. If I allow them to roll, there's a good chance that most of those people are not going to end up in back mount. It's just not going to happen. But if I put them in back mount, I'm now going to put them into a position where they now have a chance to work on that area deliberately. Like a lot of times we'll do rolls where I'll say, okay guys, we're going to start in back mount. If you escape, reset, go back to the position. If the other person is able to submit you, reset, do it again. And then we'll switch front to back. I'll even then put in other scenarios where I'll say, okay, the person cannot escape. All you can do is defend. So you can defend, but you can't escape. So basically the other person has a dummy that they can literally just try to choke or submit. And the other person is just trying to work on their survival ability, right? Now, what does that do? That allows the person to say, okay, I don't have any options. The only thing I can do is survive. So let's see how long I can survive. And then it lets the other person say, you don't have to worry about this person escaping. Try to submit them. How well can you break down their defenses and submit them? And so what I'm allowing them to do is work in a very small fraction deliberately to make that area better. And so that's the idea. And so you can do this sometimes if you don't have your own training where you just step on the mat, you're going to say like, look, like for instance, one of the ways that I got better with my side control escapes is I would like roll with people and I wouldn't tell them, but I would let them pass my guard. And then when they would pass, I would escape. I'm getting reps in. Mm-hmm. You know, when I'm rolling with people, if I have something I'm working on, I work on that thing very deliberately. I'll try to put myself in the position. And so again, that's kind of an idea for you there. It's like that's, you know, again, kind of going back to that deliberate practice. And so kind of goes back to intention, goes back to all that stuff. But again, having that deliberate focus of what you're doing rather than just kind of, all right, let's roll and just see what happens. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah. There's a super chat.
Oh, we got another one?
Yeah. You want to read it to you?
Yeah, one of you guys said, I like that he gets so into the questions, which I know I get going on these tangents.
It says, this is from Coffee and Hypertension. Great name. I'm hyped for my first competition, sub only. Should I focus on anything specifically or just embrace the first time experience? He's a white belch.
So first competition, sub only. And should you embrace it? So first off, think about it this way. It's your first competition. Okay, so if you were listening to the Chewster at any point in time, you would probably know my sort of stance on this. When it comes to your first competition, it's about doing the thing. You got to want to win. You should have desire. You should train like you want to win 100%. But understand that it's kind of a rite of passage because it's an eye-opening thing when you go into your first competition and you feel the intensity that exists and you understand what you're actually training for. Would you say that's right, Eugene? Like when you did your first competition, was it kind of like, oh, so this is what it is?
Yeah, the level, like it's
It's different.
I want to say the speed and the intensity is something you can't really prepare for until you actually do it.
Yeah, it's different,
Yes.
right? You're in an unknown place with unknown people you don't train with. It's all unknown to your body. It freaks you the hell out. It's literally like rolling for the first day all over again, right? You just get exhausted, and after one match, you're tired. Like I had some of my guys, Trey is actually in the group right now. He had his first competition yesterday, and again, one of those things where Trey can roll 5, 6, 7, 8 rolls in the gym, no problem. One match in the gym and the competition, like, whew, my grips are burning, right? It's a different thing, different intensity. So part of it is learning, hey, what is this thing like? What is it actually like to do a competition for the first time? And what is it like to be on the mats with people and doing this whole thing? And then it changes the way you train. I've seen people literally be like some of the softest dudes. And I don't mean soft in a negative thing. It just is what it is. It takes time for a lot of people to develop grit. But they were the most, we'll say it, maybe you don't want to call them soft, but we'll call them the most ungritty people ever met, right? And then after they do that competition, boom, they become gritty. We had a guy way back when I was a white belt, or I was a blue belt. We used to call him 007 because he had a cool car. And 00 was not a very gritty person. You could just like throw him around and he just whatever. I remember he did his first competition. He comes back the next week, middle of the week, and both me and my buddy Slater, he was a blue belt as well, and we were coming back. We used to live together in a carpool. We were driving back from training, and we were both talking to each other like, dude, did you roll with 00? I was like, I did, man. Jesus, like he turned a corner. 007, man. He got tough. It was like literally a couple days. It just unlocked a certain intensity in him where he's like, oh, this is what we're training for. So that said, that's kind of one of the big things you're going to get out of this experience, okay? Now that said, you train for it. To me, as a competition, remember that your idea when you compete is not about knowing everything in jiu-jitsu. That's not what a competition is about. A competition is about you taking a handful of really sharpened techniques that you can then take into battle with you and use, right? So think about, you want to have a couple of really sharp weapons, then an army of dull ones. And so what you should be doing leading up to this competition is thinking about, okay, the match is going to start on the feet. What is your takedown? What is your guard pull? If you're on the ground, where are you trying to get to? What is your dominant position of choice? Where are you best from? Are you good from guard for submissions? Good, you should pull guard. Are you better from top? Well, then maybe you should either pull guard and sweep, or maybe you should go for the takedown. If you're on top, what's your best position? Go for there. And again, find those submissions that you're looking for, because it's sub-only, so you're basically trying to figure out what your game is that you're going to take in, and then that's what you're working to. And then when you compete, you should be focused on the techniques. If you guys are interested in this, I have a game plan sheet. It's my game plan from 2016, which hasn't changed a lot. So there's a few differences, but if you look at it, it's on my website. If you go to jiujitsu.net, and there's like a free game plan ebook that you can get, and for signing up for my email list. And when you get it, if you look into that thing, in the back of it, there's a flow chart. And if you look at that flow chart, that is my flow chart from 2016. It is my exact game plan that I was using as a black belt in 2016. That, again, you can look at my matches and you can literally like, oh, there's that move, and you can find it and see it. And then you can then take that, and I'd include a section for you where you can just kind of reverse engineer that and say, okay, well, let me make my own version of this. Maybe it'll be a bit smaller, doesn't have as much to it, but you can kind of fill in the blanks and you can make your own game plan. And that's a free resource for you. But for now, like I said, just do it. It's about doing the darn thing and learning what it's about. But also, as you're leading up to it, you definitely want to, start thinking about your game plan. What are you going to use from all these positions? How is your game going to work? And how are you going to get that submission? That kind of thing. So hopefully that's helpful to you. And thank you for the super chat. I appreciate the blessing. Again, it's always helpful. It's always useful. And we appreciate you.
Excellent. Yeah. We've answered this one before. Should white belts learn leg locks? Chewy?
Yeah, I think so. We had a couple of our white belts win with straight ankles yesterday.
Awesome.
Yeah, I had a couple straight ankle locks. I think that, I don't think there's a big, I don't allow white belts to use heel hooks right out of the gate, or twisting leg locks, just because of the danger, but I allow them to use straight ankles, and we show them a lot of escapes. And I think that there's a value in teaching them stuff early so that we get rid of the fear associated with it. Because to me, it's like, you do, like, for instance, like with, like, for me, like we both own firearms, right? We live in Kentucky, both own firearms.
For sure.
To me, the biggest danger with owning a firearm is if you don't know how to use it, or if you have some irrational fear of that firearm. You should have a healthy respect and understand what it can do, but you shouldn't be terrified of it. and you shouldn't be ignorant towards it. Right? So with leg locks, I think it's the same way. They can be incredibly dangerous, but all joint locks can be incredibly dangerous, especially like kimuras and, chokes. I mean, you can crush people's windpipes if you don't do it right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's we're not playing patty cake, so there's a lot to really get into. And so what I think one of the big things you want to do is you want to have a healthy respect for all submissions, not just leg locks, chokes, arm locks, shoulder locks, the whole shebang. You should have a healthy respect for all of them. And you should understand when they're there, when they're sunk in, when you should tap, and when you should hold. So like, for instance, with a leg lock, very important is understanding the idea of, I'm going to hold this now. I have control of it. There's no longer, I don't need to crank this anymore. That's an important thing to understand. And so I want those students to understand this from the get-go. We're playing with dangerous stuff, but it doesn't have to be dangerous if we do it right. And so with that, since we've been teaching leg locks at our gym on a regular basis to beginners, we've had fewer injuries. Because what happened before was, if we didn't teach them leg locks early, they would learn them from YouTube, and then they'd come in and use them, and then we'd have a student who didn't know how to get out of them, and they would get injured by escaping the wrong way. Mm-hmm. When they understood what they were, understood how to escape them, understand how to hold. I've even seen guys where they hold the leg lock, and they'll be against someone who's being kind of stubborn. I've seen this happen plenty of times, where they'll see the person being stubborn, and they'll turn hard, and they'll just let go of it because they understand the guy's about to injure himself. Mm-hmm. And then they'll talk to him afterwards, that kind of thing. Hey man, be careful because you're gonna get yourself hurt. Better control, no injuries. Perfect. So I think that's the idea. We want to make sure that people have a healthy respect for submissions, not just all submissions. And I think the better that we understand the submissions, that we understand what they do, and we understand how to hold them, how to control them, and understand we're not trying to get to the point of rupturing or breaking anything, that's a good place to be for all submissions. But I think it's good with leg locks.
All right. We had a couple super chat questions, but Mick Jagger had a question.
Mill says coffee and hypertension. Madman.
Yeah, I don't know. But so we'll answer Mick Jagger's. He said, what should I do if I feel my coach only gives out good advice to people on a one-on-one basis if they're rich and can afford private lessons or are Brazilian? I don't know.
Let me ask this real quick. Mick, have you ever asked them? Have you ever just come up to him and said, "Hey, coach, can I ask you a question real quick?" I just wonder, right? Because maybe you have. Have you ever gone up to him and just maybe you're in the gym, say, "Hey, it's me, Mick Jagger. Could I ask you a question real quick, coach? Or I was having problems with X. Could I ask you a question real quick?" Have you ever tried to do that? Okay, he says yes.
Okay. So,
I don't know, man. I'm one of these coaches where, for instance, at the end of the class, I get everybody together. You guys got any questions? I answer questions all the time because I feel like if I'm there, I tell people, a lot of times, if you send me text messages, I may not get back to you for a while. If you send me a Facebook message, I may not get back to you while I'm kind of secluded, whatever. But when I'm out, when I'm around, I remember one of my students, Amanda, she was like, "I feel sorry for you." And I said, "Why?" And she's like, "That sounds wrong." She's like, "But sometimes I feel like as soon as you're out here, everybody's asking you questions and they're talking to you about something or they want something." And she said she kind of felt bad about that, right? God, just give the guy a minute. And I told her, I was like, well, no, that's what I'm here for. If I'm out and my face is here on the mats, I'm here at your disposal. What do you need? I'm here for you. That's what I'm here to do. So if you got a question, I'm here for you. Let's look at it, right? If you need something, let's look at it. So I don't know the situation with your coach, but the one thing I would say is two things. One, there could be something going on. It could also be something where this has happened so many times where people sometimes project their own thinking on someone without it actually being real, right? For instance, I've had students who thought I was angry at them. And I was like, "No, I wasn't angry at you." They're like, "Oh, I thought you were angry at me because..." I was like, "No, I wasn't angry at all." They just assumed that I was. Or people would assume other things, and so I hope that you're not going about the assumptions where maybe the coach is maybe giving some person attention and you're thinking the guy's rich or something. Now, if the person is doing a bunch of private lessons, then again, it's probably going to be helpful for their training, and he's probably going to develop a relationship with the coach just because they're spending more time together. That's going to happen. But I think that your coach should always be there to help you if you need something. Again, now they may not be able to give you a 30-minute lesson right there on the spot, but I think if you're having questions, if you have a quick question or a tip or something like that, I think the coach should be there to help you. And I think the coach should be there to teach you good techniques. But again, there's a balance, right? If your coach's time is probably important. So, you shouldn't expect that they're going to spend an hour or something teaching you and on you alone. But at the same time, if you're training hard and things like that and you're there in class, I think they should also be there to help you. It's one of those things where this question's hard because I don't know the exact situation that's going on in front. So it's hard to say like, if your coach is doing this, that, whatever. But I would just sort of, speak up for yourself. And like, if you have questions, ask your coach, because that's what they're there to do. And again, if you feel like that they're giving you the cold shoulder or they're being disrespectful to you in some way, then you could always check out another gym and see if it's the same at that gym as well. Maybe you could find another gym that maybe suits your vibe a little bit better.
Let's do one more question, Chew. We had another super chat.
We had a super chat, didn't we?
One more. Also, I want to give a shout out to one of our newer sponsors, Manscaped. They got little trimmers and cool stuff for your body and all your bits and stuff. I'm sure you guys know about Manscaped. So they have these trimmers, but you can use promo code Chewjitsu and get 20% off and free shipping if you're interested. Support the podcast as well. And they actually have good quality stuff, so I thought I'd give them a little shout out real fast. All right. So, JM. Hey, Chewy, do you believe in living up to the weight of your belt? As in, should purple belts be able to submit white belts, blue belts
Is this the super chat?
This is.
Okay.
Blue belt submit a new, stronger person. What if a student can't?
So there's a ton of different things that would possibly that go into this, right? So first off, I would say yes. You want to try to live up to your belt. You want to try. There's a certain level of stress associated with that when you get a new belt. And I think it's good.
Yeah.
Because stress makes us grow, right? And it's good to be a little stressed sometimes. Like one of my mentors, I remember him telling me this, about like business related stuff and financial related stuff. He's like, Chewy, you want to stress yourself out a little bit. Don't get comfortable. Don't get complacent. Throw yourself into new things and stress yourself out. For me, I kind of do this anyway. I'll constantly give myself different deadlines and stuff like that to meet. And it stresses me out a little bit, but it's good because I get things done and I improve in what I'm doing. And in the gym, sometimes I'll work on positions that I suck from sometimes just because I want to create a little stress in myself, and again, it makes things better. So I think it's good to have a expectation to live up to, because it's good to have something to work towards and to aspire to. And so, yeah, I think if you got a purple belt, you should aspire to be a good purple belt. Now, everybody, when you get into the gym, there's so many different factors that come into beating someone, say during a roll, right? So for instance, let's say you're like 50 years old and you got a purple belt. And you got a 30 or let's say a 25-year-old blue belt. That blue belt might beat you, probably going to beat you because again, it's physicality. Do not buy into the BS myth that like physical strength and speed and everything does not matter. It does, right? Technique is king, 100%. But the way your body is going to directly impact the way that you can execute techniques. So if you take terrible care of your body, don't be surprised when you run into injuries, when you get outworked by younger people or stronger people or whatever. It's going to happen, right? When your body's in better shape, when you do other things, it's going to make a big difference in the way that you train. So those could be a factor. If you're older, if you're just not in this shape or whatever, that could be a thing. And also, there's a different thing where for me, I judge people a little bit differently. If I know that you're in this, for instance, if you want to be a competitor, and that's why you're here, I usually hold those people a little bit longer at their belts. Because that's what they're chasing. They're chasing that competition, and it's just the nature of it. Competitor, like if they're going to compete decently, a lot of times at competitions, people get held at their belts a little bit sometimes, and so I just want to see them, give them a little bit more time to win and everything else. If I know that if you're just kind of your hobbyist and stuff like that, I'm not judging you to be at the same level of rolling effectiveness as that competitor.
Yeah.
Right. Because the competitor, they're going to be training harder. They're training more. They're on the mats longer, everything else. That hobbyist might be coming in a couple times a week.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to be at the same level of rolling capacity as the other person, but technically they need to be there. I need to see that they have the technical capacity. I need to see that as they're growing, that they can do the different things that I expect. Like if you're a brown belt and you're training a couple days a week, you should be able to teach. Because I don't think if you have a black belt, you should be able to teach. Period. I don't think you should be a black belt and can't string together a couple techniques to teach someone, because people are going to come to you whether you want them to or not. Like, hey, you're a black belt, show me something. For sure. So you got to be able. Yeah. You got to be able to break down information for them. And so again, you might be the black belt or the brown belt getting beat up by the friggin' world champion blue or purple belt, but you might have some more technical knowledge and you may have been training for a longer time. It's just a different. I'm not going to judge everyone by the same yardstick. And so again, everybody has their different roles to play inside the gym. And so, but I do think that whatever it is, however you guys judge things, I think you should definitely live up to those expectations. Now, if you lose to some of these guys, it's going to happen. I'll let you know a little secret. All right. Just, I'm not going to say it super loud. So just bring your ear a little closer to your phone or to your computer, whatever you're listening to. I get submitted by people that are lower belts than me. I'm a third degree black belt. I've been a black belt since 2011. I get submitted by purple belts sometimes. I got submitted by one of my blue belts last week. That happened. Now, again, I tell you that I'm joking with you, of course. But, I mean, it's true. It's 100% true. I get submitted all the time, right? In the gym, it's the lab. We're playing around. We're going to get submitted. I'm going to get submitted by people. This is one of the biggest problems I had growing through my belts. Early on, I was not okay with failure, and errors were not normalized. So basically what would happen is anytime I made a mistake, I felt so bad about it. I felt like I was letting people down and all this stuff. Completely the wrong idea. Errors have to be normal. This is what we do, right? I posted this the other day, right? Everything that I have that I consider a success or anything that I'm proud of or any technique that I have that's useful at this point, like any of my best techniques, they're all built on a friggin' pile of failures, right? Like tons and tons of mishaps, failures, screw-ups that then led me to this sharpened technique, right? You can think about like a piece of wood, and maybe you're trying to shave this piece of wood down to make a shape or something. Well, every time you make a mistake, you whittle away, right? You whittle away. And at first, it's big chunks of wood, right? Like just kind of getting the technique. And then over time, it's refinement where you start sanding it down. And so when you're making these mistakes, you're getting rid of the stuff that's not going to work, and you're leading to what's going to become a refined technique or position, opposed to making a value judgment on yourself, where if you lose the role or if you get submitted by the lower belt, you get all upset about it and you feel like you suck and you shouldn't be a blue belt. I'm terrible. I'm the worst purple belt that's ever existed. You're not. You lost. It happens. That's what happens sometimes. If it does happen though, and it bugs you, and it's okay, use that negative energy for something useful. All right. So instead of saying, "Oh man, I suck," blah blah blah, say, "Damn it, that SOB got me again. I'm gonna get him tomorrow. I'm gonna figure out a way." Because that's the way that, like, when you have your training partners, it should be that friendly, competitive thing where you're like, "All right, he got me yesterday. I'm gonna get him again. I'm gonna get him with something," right? Because that's fun. And that's what we're doing. We're always competing with each other, and the competition's good. But it should be a negative thing where if you lose the competition, where you're mad at yourself, or you think that you're somehow bad. But you should be trying to live to a expectation, but you should also be trying to, again, learn from what's happening on the mats and being normal, or having errors be normalized, and not treating those failures with such a judgment on who you are or what you should be ranked or whatever. Because again, during the roll, stuff's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to get caught, you're going to get messed up and stuff. You're going to have off days. All that stuff's going to happen. And again, people that are under you, like if they're a blue belt and you're a purple belt, they're going to be nipping at your heels because they're wanting to test themselves, just like you're going to want to test yourselves against the purples and the blacks and so on. And so just a few things, couple ideas to chew on.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, we talked to Chris Howder last podcast, and he was talking about, belt levels and promoting and things like that. And he talked about, like, look at how you do against your peers. Like, say you're a 40-year-old brown belt. Yeah. How do you do against, 38, 40 plus brown belts, right? How do you do against them?
Or even like the 40, 48 blue belts and stuff. Like,
there you go.
People similar body types and similar age.
Similar amount of training, similar amount of, experience. But for the most part, like, yeah, you're going to have purple belts in there that are going to be just killers. They compete all the time. They train 5-6 days a week. It's different. The goals are different, and that's one thing Chris said, who's, what is he, 60 something probably?
60 something, been training since the 80s.
Mangled fingers and all that stuff. And so, yeah. You can't,
I mean, bro, I'm not old by any stretch. I'm 35.
But old in jiu-jitsu terms.
Well, I'm old in the sense that, like, I'm a newer model, right? If I was a car, I'm a fairly newer model, right? But I've got a lot of mileage. It's like a lot of hard mileage, right? And so, like, for instance, I can train really hard, but my recovery is different, right? So, for instance, like with if I have some young guys in the gym, I can compete. I don't roll with any young guys where I'm like, I can't keep pace with them, right? I got a good motor. I take excellent care of my body. I do all these things. But the next day, I need a day off. Where like the young guys are like, I'm fine. Let's, they can eat crap food. They can go out and party. And the next day they're in training again. I can't do that anymore, right? I've had to become like, and this is maybe a good tip for some of you guys as you're getting older. As you get older, you should become even more meticulous with the way that you treat your body outside of the gym. When you're younger, if you do this better, it'll pay off big time. But a lot of times as you get older, it almost becomes a necessity where you need to eat better, where you need to, take care of your body, be very mindful of it. And it makes a big difference, And so I'm speaking from experience, right? And so again, I'm not going to try to keep pace with these 30-year-olds or these like 20-year-olds that are nipping, at my heels,
Yeah, for sure.
You just can't keep that pace, And here's another thing for you guys too. Don't here's a big thing, especially if you're newer in jiu-jitsu and you're a bit older, don't match pace with the younger people, and don't look up a highlight video of like the 21-year-olds that are at like Atos or Pedigo and think, I'm 50 years old, this is what I'm doing. Look, man, like that ship has sailed, right? Like I'm not saying you can't train hard for you, but you got to listen to your body, because you don't want to be like one of these 21, 22, 23, whatever year old people that's trying to, do it big in the world championships, and they're training every day, twice a day, living on the mat, sometimes literally. That's just a different lifestyle. It's a different place in life that they're at, right? And again, you're probably not there. And so you got to honor where you are. We're all in a different, this is the thing, we all have to honor a different place. Like I was thinking about the women's, at the women's classes at the gym.
Yeah.
Like we have some women's only classes. I think it's a good thing. Like I think that like women, like we all obviously have mixed classes too, but I like to give the women a little space for themselves, and it showed both in how many women we have training and how many women did really well with their competition yesterday. Big time showed off, right? Because women are just different than men. It is what it is. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think instead of trying to be silly about it and act as if there's no difference between anybody and try to judge everybody by the exact same yardstick, to honor those differences and allow them space. Right? So if you're a little bit older, right, don't be dumb about it, right? You get one bucket of bones to take with you on this ride. Don't exhaust it prematurely by trying to chase the pace of a 20-year-old, who doesn't have any responsibilities, that hasn't had injuries over the years, that, has lived half or a third of the life that you have. Honor that they're different and they're in a different place in life, and let them be where they're going to be, and that kind of thing. I think it's good to honor those things and just be honest of where things are, right? And so we, with the women, same thing. Like we're just, look, it's a different place. They're different body types and everything else. Let's give them space where they can see what that's like, right? And just kind of allow that to happen. So
I agree. Yeah. Letting everybody kind of have their own, their own space to learn and develop. That's why you have beginner classes sometimes. You have white belt classes. We have that, and we have some kind of upper belt classes, because you get different looks and different. With looking at the skill level or the belt levels, like you're getting a different type of instruction too. Yep. You need some more specific, more complex techniques sometimes for these upper belts, or even more complex ways to get into certain positions, whatever. So I think there's value to having that as well. And then Adolfo said, "I wish there was old guy only classes."
There are some gyms that have they'll have like executive classes.
Yeah, like over 40.
Yeah, they'll have executive jiu-jitsu. I asked some guys back in the day. I said, "Hey guys, do you guys want executive jiu-jitsu?" And like all my guys were like, they told me to F off.
Yeah.
They're like they don't want to. But I'll say this though, I kind of like. I benefited personally from being in groups with older men when I was younger, because there's a lot of, like, here's the thing for some of you guys that are older. If you're an older guy with some wisdom and experience, you may not be able to hang rolling wise with some of those younger guys that are like trying to be competitors or whatever, but they could really value from, if they're smart, they could really value from your wisdom in life, right? Like for me, I mean, and this is a good thing, because you think about and I've talked about this numerous times, old tribal cultures. There would be tribes of elders for the men and the women, right, that they could meet and hang out with and get to talk to and to learn from, to see like, hey, like let's distill some of your experience down so that we can use it, right? A lot of you guys watching this, a lot of my channel is me taking some of my experiences and trying to give them to you so that you maybe have a smoother start than I did when I was beginning. And when I teach my students, it's the same thing. I'm taking experiences and ideas and learned lessons and failures and saying, hey guys, I've learned this stuff. Here you go. this might make things smoother for you. And so, I learned a lot from being around older guys that were business owners. Like, I mean, I think one of the big reasons I am a business owner to this day is from guys like Al was a guy I met in Jiu-Jitsu. There was another guy who was unrelated to Jiu-Jitsu, but he was a gym owner named Jim. There were several of these guys that I met when I was younger, hugely impactful, because it allowed me to have different experiences and learn from different people, and then as I started training, I mean, there's been tons of guys who have helped me out over the years, from everything from specific like business or legal questions to even life related questions, just like having a shoulder. Hey man, what do you think about this? What do you think about the situation I'm going through? Have you ever been through something like this? And then being like, actually, I have been through something like that back when I was 30. Let me share you how I went from you, and you make your own decision. Hugely important. So I think that, if you're a younger guy, if you're rolling with someone, be mindful that like, yeah, you might be able to submit those guys on the mat, but they might have some wisdom to share with you. So when they start talking about stuff, shut up and listen sometimes, because it's a valuable thing, right? Like even when I was younger, I might have been one of the toughest guys in the gym, but when those older dudes talked and they were talking about stuff, I would shut up and just listen. Like, what are they talking about? Because I know they're older and they've got things going on. I want to hear what they talk about.
Right.
I want to hear what these successful people talk about, or these people that have done stuff in life. I want to hear about the kind of experiences and wisdom they have to share.
Yeah. Let's end on that, Chew.
All right.
Let's end on that. Sponsors, give a quick shout out. They help us keep the podcast rolling.
Yeah. So first off, I want to thank everybody for your super chats today. It was appreciated. Again, it helps the podcast and helps us keep going. But and I appreciate your support. I'm thankful you guys are here with us on this Sunday, because again, without you guys listening and tuning in and hanging out with us, we don't really have a podcast, do we?
Yeah.
It would just be.
That.
I mean, me and Eugene, we talk, but whatever. But with that said, big thanks to our sponsors. First one, Epic Roll, epicrollbjj.com. If you guys want to, he's got a limited time 30% off special holiday coupon code. So you can go to epicrollbjj.com, use Jiu-Jitsu 30. You'll save 30% off of anything inside the store. Check out its Ocean Storm gi. It's a beautiful black and gray gi. Gray gi with a black lapel trim. Super cool gi. If you want to, again, I'm a big fan of standing out. This is the way I am. Whenever I make stuff, I want it to be different. And even when I would buy gis back in the day, I would always look for different colors that people didn't have, or I would try to find gis and rash guards, or even MMA shorts. I would try to find stuff that people didn't have. I remember ordering my MMA shorts I wore for about 6 years. I ordered them from some random website that like was in Japanese that nobody else knew about, and just so I could have a pair of shorts that nobody else had, right? And so again, if you pop in with your red or your gray and black gi, you're going to stand out amongst your peers. They're going to be like, oh, the gi's dope. I remember when I did my gray and black jiu-jitsu gis, everybody was like going to their gi or their gyms, and everybody was jealous. And then I was getting messages from their friends like, hey, can we still get one of those things? And I'm not selling those again. So if you want to get a gray and black gi and stand out amongst your peers, check out his stuff at epicrollbjj.com. And then if you guys want to get some CBD, you can check out charlesweb.com. Use a promo code Jiu-Jitsu.
Jiu-Jitsu right now, and then we'll see if we can get another code to you guys. But right now it's Jiu-Jitsu, and it's 15% off.
Yeah, and again, I say this, I've become the CBD slinger in the gym, and I've gotten several of my students kind of hooked on it. A lot of times, as we all are, we've all been. If any of you guys watched Charlie Brown back in the day, remember Charlie Brown and Lucy would go, and like Lucy she'd have the football for Charlie Brown. She'd like, here, Charlie, try to kick it. Every time she would pull the damn football, and Charlie Brown would, eat crap. And then he would like, I'm not doing this again. And she would coax him into doing it. Do it again. Come on, do it again. And eventually he would do it. And every time she'd pull the football back. A lot of us, myself included, by people peddling stuff, have had these experiences where you get excited. You're like, yes, I'm going to get this thing. And then you get it. And you're like, God, this sucked. And every time you kind of go into it with, man, these guys are talking about this thing. Are you about to pull the football out for me again? Is this going to be BS? So like I've given several of my students CBD just to try. And I share it because like I give it to you. I don't care. Like if you don't like it, then whatever. But I give it to people because I want them to try it because I've gotten benefit from it, right? And so whenever I get something that works for me, I like sharing. And so with that said, if you guys want to try it, again, it's no big deal. If you don't try it, it's not going to hurt my feelings. But if you look up the benefits of CBD, if you've heard people talk about it, if you heard me talk about it and all the benefits from it, if you're like skeptical but you want to try, then just get a month's supply. Get like a pack of the gummies or get a pack of the tinctures or whatever. Just try it out for a month. See what it does for you. If you like it, great. If you don't, then you just let it go. But a lot of times you can't hurt to try. And, again, with my students, a lot of them have, jokingly become addicted to it just because they like the benefits they've gotten from it and they felt. If you guys take it before bed like I do, pair it up with a little bit of magnesium, like a chelated magnesium and some chelated zinc. Definitely beneficial for like really creating some awesome sleep. And also, guys, if you guys enjoy some of the rambles and stuff that I do, as I tend to do in these podcasts and everything else, I do a email list. I call it the Chew Crew. It's on my website. If you go to jiu-jitsu.net and you go in there, I have both a free ebook that I give away for drilling, a free ebook related to a game plan, and I'll walk you through how to do it, and I'll show you that stuff. It's a video that I have put together for it as well. If you guys want to get those free resources and get my daily email that comes out, check that out. Just go to jiu-jitsu.net to sign up for it. You can unsubscribe at any time, but I send out an email that I just kind of talk about different ideas. A lot of times they are precursors to what become eventual episodes of podcasts or whatever. So if you kind of want to be on the ground floor for that stuff and have a little bit more of a direct connection to me, that's one way to do it. I also share products and stuff like that. So just disclaimer, I will tell you about stuff that I have coming up or selling or whatever. So if that bothers you, and if you are bothered by me making a living doing what I'm doing, then I wouldn't sign up. But if you're cool with that and getting some cool stories and everything else, then sign up and join me in the Chew Crew. And that's that. So
we got Manscaped.
Manscaped. Oh yeah. So we got a recent one, Manscaped, and I'm sure you guys have probably heard about it. They make trimmers. I've used it for my beard. I've used it for my chest, and reluctantly, because they're a big thing. If you guys, I didn't know this, because again, I listen to a couple of podcasts and stuff, but I don't listen to them all. Their big thing is for men using that Manscaped thing for your downstairs, getting down there and trimming up your nether region. And I'll say this. Reluctantly, because when they gave us like a script, and I was like, I'm not reading any of that stuff because it was too over the top, and I was like, I wouldn't even be able to keep a straight face reading this crap. Yeah. But I will say this: if you have trouble trimming your downstairs, it's actually a pretty good trimmer. I mean, it has a little light.
It's a light.
Although I wish I could take that light. I wish I could toggle it because it's really bright. Yeah. It blinds me a little bit. But I used it for my chest, and because my girlfriend shears me because I get like really hairy. It was funny. I didn't get hairy until I was like 24. All of a sudden it's like back hair. So like she like trims my like tufts of fur off me, and she used the trimmer, and it was very easy. It was safe on the skin. It didn't catch or anything else. And it's a good trimmer. It's portable and stuff like that, so you can use it in the shower and everything else. So it's like that's kind of a neat thing. So if you want to check it out, you can go to their website. What is it called?
Manscaped.com.
Manscaped.com. Promo code Jiu-Jitsu.
20% off.
20% off.
Free shipping as well. So that's it. That's all we got. Patreon as well if you want some behind the scenes and extra content and all that fun stuff.
Oh yeah, if you guys want to support the podcast directly and you want some extra content, check out patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Every podcast has some extras. I also we put all kinds of random stuff in there that come like little samples of other products and stuff that I have going on there. Like for instance, there's a 4-week beginners workout program that we put in. Joe and I created originally for people that were just getting back into lifting, who've been out of the gym for a while. And so we include that in a lot of our lifting products just to kind of get people going. That's included in there. I have some full length seminars that are included. Eugene's got some warm-up videos in there for people. Like if you want like a jiu-jitsu warm-up, check that out. Some stretching videos. So a lot of cool stuff along with all kinds of little rambles and podcast extras. There's 2 different tiers that you can get. Whichever one you like is fine. But there's so much content in there. If you try it out for a month, you'll be loaded with enough content to friggin' keep yourself busy for the entire month or more, whatever. And you can unsubscribe at any time, but it definitely over delivers for the price there. So if you want to check that out, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And Andrew says, I think you just sold me on it.
JM was like, reluctantly.
Well, so reluctantly, here's my thing. I'm big on this. I had to use the trimmer first before I could talk about it. I'm not bringing anything on the podcast because, look, we both have livings. We're okay, right? Like I don't need money by pushing. Hey guys, you know what you need? You need some random product that
random stuff. We get random stuff all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I get hit by so many people like, hey, you need to push this, that, whatever. But if it's something I'm actually like, this is actually pretty good, then I have no problem selling it, right? And I have no problems talking about it. But if it's something like some junk, like I've gotten messaged so many times about stupid stuff, I'm like, I'm not using that. Like one of them was like a defense umbrella.
Oh yeah.
I mean, bro, I was like, if you watch what I do, like, I'm not hitting someone with an umbrella. Like, he was like, it's a self-defense umbrella, and then he was like, sending me these videos. I'm not talking about a defense umbrella. It's not what I'm doing. Like, I do jiu-jitsu. It's hand to hand. I'm not talking about whacking someone with this umbrella. But over in other countries where like guns and stuff are outlawed, like it's like a way for them to basically it's a ball bat with a friggin' flap on it. Like I mean, it's what
God.
So I'm like, I'm not talking about that.
I'm gonna get a defense book. I'll make a book that's got weights and you just throw it. Somebody's gonna come up with this idea.
Self-defense book.
I'm reading my book and then just throw it to people.
Here I am just reading it, and oh, boom, self-defense.
Randomly, I'm getting attacked while reading a book.
Just gonna be hugging that book all the
Wasn't
time.
there a chair defense, like one of these McDojo posters?
Oh
like
yeah,
the chair defense.
So yeah, so there's some stuff that we get pushed out by people, and I'm like, man, I'm not touching that. But again, with the trimmer thing, like that's just something generally because I have a beard, so I used it for my beard, and it worked all right.
I think there's when there's like a need. I guess there is a need in a way for it.
Well, here's my thing: if I'll use it, I'll share it.
There you go.
Like the CBD, you don't need CBD. But you might like the things that it gives to you, right? You might like the benefits of it. So sure. I share it because I like it. And if it's like the trimmer, it's like, it's a pretty good trimmer. It's sitting on my bathroom sink now because I'll use it. I'll just share it. And that's the way it works. So that's the idea, guys. So anyway, I enjoyed you guys being here with us today. I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed the rants fueled by some delicious cup of coffee.
That's right.
And yeah, so
see you guys next time. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. I hope you guys have an amazing holiday season, Christmas or whatever that you guys are doing this year. And I know Christmas will be coming up, and that's that. So thank you guys for joining us. See you next time.